Well, hello there. Man, it's good. It is good. Like, I'm in awe of how good this mic is. I think I can just like lay back and talk. I don't have to move my mic that much. I don't have to lean in, but you can tell the sound difference. I brought it home yesterday, hooked it up, and I didn't hook it up yesterday. Sorry. I came in like to my office about 20 minutes ago, hooked up the mic, and then I tested it and I was like, wow. I mean, seriously, wow. So I'm very, very happy about it. Go ahead and hit that like button. We're gonna have a blast today because I don't know how long we'll be on. We'll be on maybe for a while. Maybe we'll do a 5-hour stream. I have no idea. You guys have to be messing with me. Okay. Because I'm monitoring it and there isn't. There's literally no static. I know you can hear me. So, liars. I'm going to jump in there. I'm going to jump in here. And Jerome said, King imagery and 39 questions. Hey, I thank you for the 39 question thing. Appreciate it. But I didn't know what to do. I was going to put a funky birthday hat like I did last year. But then I was like, you know what? Let me put a crown. So I generated that crown. And the crown, I told the AI to generate me a crown that is a mix of Arthurian legend and Lord of the Rings. Like, and it did a really, really good job. So very happy. I got to get used to this. But very happy with the way the computer did all the work. So I just put it on top of my head. Hey. So someone has taken my jokes extremely seriously. Only for one day. Only for one day. Let's see. I do have to probably mess around with the settings. I haven't touched any settings from the previous mic. So don't mess with me, guys, because that'll like trip me out big time. Thank you, Nick Quint. We're going to drop a link. You guys are going to call in. But just, I know in my ears I can tell the difference with audio. I hope you can, just honestly, without my silly friends saying random stuff. Tell me if you actually can tell a difference. I can. There were some people who would always complain that my audio was low. And I don't think it was, because none of my indicators say my audio was low. But I can tell why they might say that. Okay, so thank you, Pastor David. Thank you, brother. Jimmy, thank you. God bless you too. Finally, you made it to the live stream. Live. Liar, liar, liar. Arthur is feeling the spirit today. I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah, I'm excited. Where's my angle? The new Apple software update has messed with Ecamm. I'm waiting for an Ecamm update to fix giving me 2 camera stuff. So waiting to fix it. Not going to count this as a question. Yeah, big time, big time. And these are my friends. These are my closest of friends. Who needs enemies? Who needs enemies? Who needs trolls? Who needs actual trolls, considering the friends that I have? Right? Daryl, thank you, brother. Thank you, Arnold. Arnold's the guy that procured this wonderful mic. You got a sweet deal on it. So appreciate it. Where is my crown? I should have an actual crown, shouldn't I? I should have gone to Burger King. Just grab the crown. I don't have an actual crown, but I might be able to do something. That's a good idea. You know, it would be interesting if a crown randomly appeared on my head. Let's get rid of that one. Wouldn't it? We'll do it right now. Not a bad idea. Thank you. But it's I'd have to back up a lot. And not the king is here. I gotta like stay right here. But it is a sweet crown. Look at that. It's fit for a king. We're messing today, guys. We're messing. Clayton Homewood. Someone get you depends for your birthday. What? Someone get me what? No idea what you guys are talking about. Danilo, I don't know what you're talking about. Welcome. You guys seem like you're new to this channel. Welcome. All seriousness aside, sounds lovely, very crisp, clean, and even. Thank you. Now it's the funny thing is now I gotta like adjust the second one with this one. I might actually sell that one and have to buy another one of these, but because I want to have friends on for us to have a proper conversation. So the Bible says we will lay down our crowns. I see you, Jason. I see you. Okay, so guys, here's what I'm gonna do. We're gonna do the 39 question thing, but I'm also gonna drop. I'm gonna drop the link. Was I engaging in blasphemy? We'll answer this question as our first question. I have no idea what you're saying. How was that blasphemy? I'm just curious to know. I don't know how we were engaging in blasphemy. I did say 39. That's what the title of the stream is. It says birthday stream live 39 questions. I'm turning 39, you guys. So this stream is never gonna end. Yeah, I don't think that was blasphemy, man. Thank you, Alexandria. Appreciate it. So here, we're gonna drop that. If you guys want to call in, talk, ask questions, whatever it may be. I mean, we're chilling today. So question 1 was not definitely do not engage in declaring people as kings at other times. Well, like you can have earthly kings. You're not kind of overstepping there. You have rulers and authorities. Question number 2 that has been suggested as a good question. Just hang on the line over there, Clayton, and then we'll get to you, man. Um, how can the church improve our political witness in such a polarizing world? Teach what the Bible teaches. Stand on biblical grounds. Is what I would say. Yeah, I mean, so the best way to do it is probably go against your own tribe when your own tribe is being unbiblical. So, as a conservative Republican, I'm a registered Republican. If the Republicans start saying wacky things, then I bring in the Bible and I say, "You guys are saying wacky things." Right? I mean, I see a lot more Republicans probably doing that than Democrats, but that's the best way I would say to do that, Nick. And then like stop polarizing over random stuff. Is the other thing. Maybe go grab a beer with people you disagree with, and enjoy your life. That'll probably help. You know, just some advice. Okay, we're gonna bring Clayton in here. Clayton, what's going on, brother? Oh man, a man with a nice beard.
Hey, brother, how are you?
Yes, yes. See, this is y'all
that.
need to learn right there, man.
No, yours is a whole lot better. You got the salt and pepper thing going on.
Yeah,
So,
I colored one once in a while, but
do you really actually color it?
mhm.
Like,
Yeah. Sometimes it gets like really weird, and it just I don't like the way it looks.
oh, okay.
So,
I was
but
gonna
I mean,
really compliment
ideally,
you, and then you said you color it, and it's like,
yeah, it's kind of like a foo-foo thing, you know. And
yeah,
ideally, I would just like to color it all white and just like have a
I'll just be
white.
like a Steve Martin thing.
I just have all white, man. Just that Clayton Bigsby. Wow, Clayton. Just tell me about yourself, first and foremost. But I haven't seen you on the
Yeah,
channel commenting and stuff like that. So let me know how you
yeah. I just
found.
kind of found your channel a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Um, so I started following you because I was researching some things, and I found your videos on with Carl Moser or
Uh-huh.
Moser. I'm not sure how you
Yeah.
pronounce it.
Mosier.
Yeah,
Everybody
on
messes it up, so it doesn't
Theos's.
care.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine uh, he was one of his students at Gateway when he was there.
Mm.
And anyway, on Theos's was one of his videos, and I think he briefly touched on atonement, there. And so ever since then, I've kind of followed you kind of behind the scenes and just kind of watching. And then I saw that you started doing these things, and I thought, okay. Um, so I figured, um, so just kind of figuring that stuff out and, you know, looking
Um,
at that. And
nice. Are you in ministry? Are you in school, seminary? What's the?
um, right now I'm not in school. I was at Covenant Baptist Theological Seminary, but I just really couldn't afford the tuition during that time. And so it was either pay for tuition or put food on the table, and I chose to put food
Yeah.
on the table.
Yeah. It's a no brainer, huh?
So yeah, that was like, yeah, I'd much rather provide for my wife and kids than pay for books and tuition. Still pay for books, but that's because of I can't help myself.
Everybody has the same problem.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm in ministry. I'm been in pastoral ministry for the past 10 years, and so I serve at a little small rural church in Arkansas, Northeast, and also I recently started as a hospice chaplain.
Nice.
So I've been doing that kind of full time now, and still pastoring at the same time. So figuring, doing those two things together, and I really enjoy it. Being bivocational is a whole lot better doing something like this than doing retail.
Yes, that's true.
So
Especially
yeah,
if you have a heart for
I've
ministry
been,
and people, man. People don't
yeah, I mean,
understand if God's gifted you for ministry. When you're doing something outside of actually working with people, it's
hmm
it is very very draining and just taxing because you kind of feel like you're wasting away. Even you could be and money has nothing to do with it. You can be making
hmm
buckets of money and just feel
oh
like
yeah.
so useless because God's kind of has this call and wants you to work with people. So yeah.
Well, especially if you're trained in this, it's hard. Like I can't tell you how many people I've known who've gone to college or university and have gotten like a psychology degree, and now they're working at a bank. You know,
Yeah.
it just feels completely opposite of what you were actually trained to do, what you're called to do, all of those things. And then you were working at like a funeral home for, in my case, because I was working at there before my previous job. You know, I did stuff like that, and then trying to pastor on the side. But doing these two things together really just feels like the primary ministry from the church has just expanded over 5 counties.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that has been a blessing to be a part of, and just been
Yeah,
fun,
and that's not an
really.
easy thing, by the way. That the you know, folks don't know. You know,
No,
like the hospice kind of stuff is yeah,
no,
taxing.
no. I mean, it's emotionally taxing. Um, but it's what I'm called to do.
Yeah,
I mean, just to be there for people. I have that experience with being in a funeral home plus pastoral stuff, and so you're able to combine those two things. Comes out for a really, really neat work experience. And plus, I work for a lot of great people too.
yeah, that's cool. So I have a friend who is a missionary in Armenia, and he's from Arkansas originally. He moved
Hmm.
out. Yeah, so his name is Jacob Persley. He's been on my channel. Uh,
Okay. What part?
I don't know, um,
Okay.
no idea, but he yeah he moved to Turkey and did missions work there in like the early 2000s,
Okay.
and then has
Okay.
ended up.
Okay.
But if you look him up, I've actually interviewed Jacob on a number of issues, so he's
Okay. I'll definitely have to
um
look him up
if
for
you
sure.
might want to like if you ask around maybe in Arkansas, he some people might know him, and be,
Just throw a stick somewhere and hopefully it'll hit.
it's you know it's funny how small like communities can get. It's like, oh yeah, we know that guy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. But no, I just wanted to. I saw that you do this, and I thought, well, I might join in on this and just talk. You know, first off, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Um, the joke that I posted earlier just really just fell flat.
Did I read that and just miss it?
Yeah, like depends. You know, like the the elder underwear
Oh,
because you're getting
The
you're
Mormon
getting
stuff.
old.
Oh no! Oh, the
Yeah.
elder. I was like, I'm like cultish thinking. You're like, um,
But it
it
just
just
fell
tells you
flat.
how my
So
mind works. Okay,
it's okay. It's okay. My humor is not always recognized at first either,
it's
so it's
good.
okay.
Trust me. I've made I've made jokes and people were just like, okay, bro. So
Okay, moving on.
th- thanks for that. Yeah. Man, I would. So I've interviewed Carl on 3 different occasions. Okay,
Hmm.
I don't know if you saw the theosis one. We did one on
Yes.
atonement, and then we did one on the book of Hebrews.
Okay. Yeah, I never
So
watched the Hebrews one.
yeah, so that's a really good one. Actually, that's one of my favorites. But the atonement kind of stuff, it I think we were on for like 3.5 hours or 2.5 hours, something like that.
Yeah,
And he was
yeah.
just
That's
teaching,
kind of
like
just yeah. This is another day for him.
yeah, he's just like that. He's just like that in person, and
Yeah.
so he's a great guy. Really
Okay.
knows his stuff very very well, very balanced. So
Yeah. I've Theosis part was really what was causing me to really research. You know, looking at Protestant sources for that instead of going completely Eastern.
mm,
And of course, you have to deal with the original context. You know, especially like with Athanasius and others. But looking at like, okay, how does a Protestant really view this, and to where it kind of stands alongside the Eastern context? Because a lot of times you'll see a Protestant try to explain it, and then he'll just boil it down to union. And I think there's a little bit more to theosis than just that. But looking at those particular that particular issue, that video especially, really helped kind of open the door. And then that opened the door some other works by Michael Gorman, you know, him and his participationist view
yeah,
of Paul. And so that
so
has
that's cool.
been,
I will send a message to Carl and let him know that hey,
yeah,
someone recently reached out and said that
somebody in
the talk
Northeast Arkansas has watched your video.
and appreciates it because folks
Yeah.
that come on and it's again whether we're on the YouTube end and stuff like that, it's just like really cool to hear those encouraging messages. It's like, hey man, like I was really reasoning with this and struggling with it, whatever the idea may be, and it's like, oh, this really helped out. This idea really helped out, and this video helped out. So it's
Hmm.
encouraging to do things like that in the future, and to bring people like that on. So thank you for that. It's
Yeah,
encouraging.
yeah.
What would you say?
So
Let me
kind
ask
of
you a question. I know
go ahead.
it's supposed to be like people asking me questions, but let me ask you a question. What would you say is the most difficult job, difficult part of you working with the hospice patients?
Patience, I would say not necessarily the patients. It's more, I kind of see this more with the families not really knowing what's going on, kind of hope, to say it crudely, kind of holding out hope, things like that. That's hard because you have to, especially with my job, you have to prepare them mentally and spiritually. Like, hey, this thing is going to happen. It may not happen tomorrow or 6 months from now, but this person's in hospice, and very rarely, um, you can hold out hope for legit reason. But probably the worst that I've seen so far is just patients not realizing what's going on, or families even for that matter. Just it's hard to get them to understand because they have fear driving it, and so you can't really reason with fear. You kind of have to just you know let them figure this out on their own
Mm.
and help them to understand. Just kind of be there for them. And then also, um, probably the hardest thing also is really learning how to treat people as image bearers.
Yeah, because not everybody you
Um,
work with is actually a believer.
no, goodness, no. Um, People completely outside of your belief framework, um, people who may have like a Catholic background or anything of that nature, and you have to work with that. And there's even a time where you have to put your stuff aside to help them to be comfortable in that moment. Um, it's not necessarily, you're compromising your beliefs, but at the end of the day, you have to treat them as an image bearer of God. And if that's how they want to be treated and respected and so on, then yeah,
Yeah,
they have to be, you have to like step aside and to also figure out ways to love on people who really don't know what's going on, like for an Alzheimer's patient, things like that, a facility. They're just kind of there. Like I had one patient the other day. She was a new admit, and she's had several things happen to her in the past where she's just there. She cannot move. She can blink to communicate.
mm.
And I got there, explained who I was with, and so we were able to communicate through blinking. For her, it was all one-sided, but she was able to, to communicate, hey, I understand you, what you're doing, things like that. And I just read scripture to her, and just I was reading First Peter, and I read one chapter. Stop. Do you want me to stop? Do you want to rest? She said no, keep going, and I just kept reading until I read the whole book, and just being able to minister to her in that moment and to love on her with the word was probably one of the most beautiful moments of worship that I've ever had,
Wow.
and
Yeah, that's
probably the
tough.
most profound. I mean, just because it's painful to watch, that someone has had something like this happen to them and they're just trapped. But it
Yeah.
is the most, yeah, yeah. So, what was on your wish list?
What was on my birthday wish list?
Yeah.
I don't really think like that. I don't function like that. I don't have lists like that. Um,
Oh.
I'm like pretty spontaneous as a person, man. Like I'll just go with the flow. Uh,
Mm.
it's a good thing most of the time. It's not when it comes to like highly organized jobs. And
Yeah.
so like just like
Need
so
a bit more thought
I
behind
live
it.
off of a calendar. Like because if I didn't have a calendar and everything doesn't get inputted into the calendar, I just forget about them. And then I'll
Hmm.
spend like 3-4 hours talking to someone and forget that I had a meeting. So
Oh,
I
geez.
have to like my reminders and stuff like that. So that's partly why. We will see. I'll probably get to hang out with some friends and family later today, and
Good.
that's joyous. The opportunity for this mic came up, and so we purchased it, and that was probably like the spontaneous what's on my birthday list. I was like, hey, that'd be nice to switch up
Yeah.
this mic. And yeah, man, just had a really good time with my friends yesterday. We had Bible study, and then hung out with some of them afterwards. Um, you know, just getting a bunch of texts and messages online and stuff like that, and um,
Yeah. That's good.
it's really cool.
So good birthday so
Someone
far.
texted me today, a guy that actually, I'll tell you this. There's a guy. When I went to church for the first time, I didn't know anything about the Bible. I didn't know how to reference the Bible. I didn't know what books and chapters were. I didn't know what verses were. And I sat there and I picked up a Bible. So they gave me a Bible, and then the preacher got up there and he said, go to Luke chapter whatever. And then I'm like looking at my Bible, I'm flipping back and forth. I have no idea who Luke and what Luke is and what
Yeah.
four, whatever 15 means. And then there was a guy sitting next to me, and he kind of gently took my Bible and then he flipped to the passage and then he handed it to me. And so I started sitting next to him every Sunday, and he
That's
would help
smart.
me. Yeah, he would help me. He would help me flip through my Bible, and we became really good friends. And I ended up being a pastor at that church, and he was always the person like when I would preach and I would look at him, and if I said something and he got this, he had really kind of good facial expressions. So
Hmm.
as a speaker, you know what that's like. Like there's people who you just look at and you don't know what's going on, and then there's people you look at where you're just like really confused what's going on. So this was a guy who actually like it communicated things to me. So if I said something that was confusing to him,
Hmm.
immediately I would say I need to clarify this because he's a mature believer, and if it's confusing for him, I just spoke over
Yes.
more than half the people. So
Yeah.
he's been kind of this thing, and he got married and moved to the. So he texted me today, and he's a little bit older than me, and he said, "Happy birthday, enjoy your last 30s."
Yeah.
Because next year it ain't 30 anymore. I'm like, I don't feel like that, and I still feel like I'm
No.
22. But my body regularly reminds me that I'm not 22.
Oh
So
yeah.
I try to
I'm
do
I'm
stuff like a
I'm
22
30.
year old.
I'm 32, and I have severe arthritis in my left ankle
Mm.
because of an accident. And so we're getting the weather in from, the hurricane, all the rain, and I feel it all up and down my ankle. So I know that thing.
Yeah. So there's guys who are in their 40s who tell me, when you hit 40, it's gonna be like you're gonna feel a lot more of it. I'm just like, I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't want that, man. But yeah, it's
Okay.
cool. Yeah. Do you have
Cool.
you're married with kids?
Yes. Been married to my wife. We've been together a little over 10 years, but we've been married for seven. This 16th of this month was our
Oh,
seventh
well, happy
anniversary.
anniversary.
Yeah, thanks. And then two kids, boy and girl twins. And so, yeah,
You guys
we
got
have our hands.
2-for-1 package deal, man.
Yeah, man, we're not done either. And so
You might end up
we need
having like three
triplets
sets of twins. It's like if that's happened, it
or triplets. I mean,
yeah,
we don't
any,
know
anything could
because
happen.
that probability goes up high once you have twins right off the bat.
Yeah,
So my wife is a twin, and so I had there was no chance in the matter. I didn't stand a chance. And so
yeah.
I remember we found out we were pregnant Christmas Day of 20, and then like a few weeks after, like right at the edge of 21, we went to a little sneak peek. We took her parents with us, and they saw two little things in there, and her dad just kind of looked at me and said, "That looks really familiar."
He's been through it, man.
And I think I don't know if I said an expletive or I passed out. I think probably both.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
um um there's a feedback coming
there's a
through.
feedback coming through.
Did you take your
Did
headphones
you
off?
take your headphones off?
Now I can't hear you.
Now I can't hear you.
Just hear myself.
Just hear myself.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
You back? Okay. Can you hear me? You can't hear me. We'll wait for Clayton. Yeah, there was a little bit of an echo. And then you've muted yourself right now, so you have to unmute yourself. There should be a little button. But if you can hear me, you gotta unmute yourself. Okay. Clayton, we're gonna. Someone else has called in, so I'm gonna turn this off, and then you can call back later when maybe everything works. So. Okay, we have someone else who's called. I don't know. Yahali. What? Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna bring in our next guest. If I kind of okay. Whoa, we got a guest.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Wow, I am calling from Nashville, Tennessee. I have been United States citizen for so many years.
There seems to be some people around you.
I have been into my family is actually fighting civil war. Civil war.
You
I
haven't.
just want to.
I don't
I
know
have
whether
been.
you're telling the truth.
I have been watching your channel for a very long time. My family fighting in United States Civil War because we wanted to bring all Iranians in United States.
So are you Iranian? I'm not sure.
Yeah, my name is Yaali Kakisagali. I am actually been. I am Iranian, but I have been United States citizen for a very long time. Like I was
You,
saying to you, my family's fighting civil war.
you remind me of someone.
Oh, what?
There's another Iranian gentleman that calls on the
I
show.
actually speaking my English very well. I think I make it. I
Oh,
get
your
a
English is a lot
compliment.
better than his. I think he's a
Oh yeah, I
recent
get
comer.
some compliment. I'm walking down the street and everybody says, "Why are you looking like the cowgirl?" I say,
Oh,
"Thank you, very
well, it's
nice."
Nashville, so
Yeah, I'm looking like cowgirl. I
you
actually
have a nice hat.
thank you, very nice. Thank you, it's very nice. But I just wanted for I mean, I just want to say happy birthday.
Thank you.
Oh, have a wonderful day. Celebrate. And I don't know what else to say, honestly. I am very busy right now, but I said maybe I make a call and just say happy birthday for you.
Thank you, Yahali.
Do you know how to pronounce my last name?
I don't, and I don't want to say it.
Just try it.
I can't. It's too difficult for me.
Okay, I have one question for you since it's 39 question.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to be 100% honest. In your entire channel history, who has been your favorite guest?
Oh, depends on the criteria.
Don't make wrong answer. Don't make wrong answer.
I'm just saying it depends on the criteria. Like in regards to entertainment and maybe a danger to my life.
So in regard to entertainment, who has been your favorite?
There's only one. There's only one person. I think the chat would agree with me. So I'm not even going to say it. Let the chat write it down. Hey, chat. Who do you think the most entertaining guest has been on this channel? Yeah, we're gonna wait for the chat to write this down.
Yeah, let's wait.
But
Let's wait.
wait, as they're writing this down, I just want to give a big shout out to my very good friend Radar Apologetics, who just gave a $10 super chat. And he said, "Happy birthday, bro. May the Lord continue to strengthen you. May the Lord bless you, keep you. May he shine his face upon you and be gracious towards you in Jesus' name. Amen." Thank you, Radar. Appreciate it, man.
That is what I was going to say, but he beat me for it.
Oh, okay.
He
So
beat me to it.
we're waiting for the chat. Look, there's a gentleman. I'll just say it. The gentleman that's been the best guest. I think your phone's messing up, by the way. There's some feedback and stuff. Might want to get some headphones. But his name is Pisabi. We call him Aghay Pisabi.
Uh-huh.
He's Iranian. He's the greatest guest we've ever had. Whoa, what is going on?
I was waiting, Mr. Apologetic.
Man, wow.
Okay, taking clip. Wow, I look like Texas cowboy.
Oh.
You think? I know I'm tricking everybody with this hairstyle,
Yeah.
but
That was pretty good. I like your hat.
Mr. Apologetic, how are you doing? It's been a long time. You know, I went vacation Hawaii. I went vacation San Diego. I go to vacation San Francisco. But as soon as I step in, there is 100,000 Homo sapien running after me. So I say, I'm out of here. Sit back in my car, drive to the south, back to Los Angeles. I don't know what is going on to San Francisco. It's bridge, it's water, what is it? But everywhere is Homo sapien. And so I just driving back. But anyways, I am so happy that you're finally 40-year-old.
39. I'm not 40 yet.
Oh my God! I put this entire effort, and you're only 39.
Well, if you want to count for my conception, I'm 40.
What is conception? What is conception?
Well, you know, when you are conceived.
I'm just kidding. You think I'm an idiot? I've been in United States for 25 years. Anyways, I just want to say happy birthday, and I hope you have very good friends to taking you out. Unfortunately, I can't be on vacation right now.
You're still on vacation in Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm still on vacation. Don't tell government if they are watching, but I take a disability. I tell them whatever. But I am on vacation right now, but I think I am on disability. I have a guy actually looking like me in my neighborhood. I give him a couple of dollars. I tell him to walk outside with limp every 3 days in case government coming and driving past my house. But anyways, he's been doing
Mr. Pisabi, I have a couple of questions for you since it's my birthday.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Number one, the Iranians in this chat, in this group, are growing.
Wow, really?
Yeah, just saying.
I am actually growing too. I was 5'6" last year, and then this year I saw an Instagram ad for lifting to the shoes. You know, at the bottom they put a little head. So I was buying that because they were asking to girls. They were asking to girls on the street if the guy is 2 inches taller is making for difference for you, and everybody was saying on the street yes. So I buying the shoes. So now I am 5'9". So I am growing too, and I'm glad all the Iranians are growing.
That's good. So Jason is Iranian. Agape is Iranian as well, and they're Christians. So we have to wait for Mr. Pisabi to become a Christian as well.
Wow,
yeah.
So many Iranian Christian. Maybe one day they will have underground Christian movement in Iran.
They already have it.
Okay, Mr. Apologetic, don't annoy me on your birthday.
I'm just saying they already have it. But okay. I have another question.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been an American citizen for some time now.
Yeah, 23 years.
Okay, one of the privileges of being an American citizen is participating in elections.
Very important.
And we have a major election coming up. I wanted to know who Mr. Pisabi is going to vote for.
Yeah, well, you know, it's very important as president of the United States, but I was first leaning toward Gavin Newsom because he's giving me so much social benefit, you know what I mean? But
he's not running.
Now we have who is running for president? We have Joseph. Joseph is great. You know, Joseph is nice guy. I never have problem with Joseph. I think he overall is trying to serve to the United States. He's good guy. He has nice family. His son is a very good guy. one of the best sons you can ever have in the
But
world.
he's
I
no
think.
longer running. He dropped out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Joseph is not turning.
No,
He's walking.
Joseph Biden is not running. So it's
Wow.
Donald Trump, and
Okay.
Joe
Yeah, Donald Trump.
Biden's
Yeah.
replacement is his vice president currently, Kamala Harris.
Who's Harris?
Kamala Harris. She's running for president.
Can you say that name one more time? I don't think I heard of it before in my
Kamala
life.
Harris,
Oh wow, she's
the current
running. What is
vice
she
president.
running with?
She wants to be the first woman president in U.S. history.
It's joking. What is today? Joke Friday. We are
It's not a joke. I mean, you've been vacationing. Maybe you've missed the news.
woman president. Wow, this has become comedy. If you're joking for me, just say you're joking.
This is very
Mr.
serious.
Apologetic,
And
I know
his
you're
yeah.
joking. It's okay. The United States Constitution and Declaration of Independence is say that no woman in history
That's not
can
true.
become two presidents.
That's
Okay,
not true.
so if they are trying to change for the Constitution, I'm that every American should stand up and fight. But no, not physically fight. I don't want FBI
Yeah.
coming knocking on my door in Hawaii. But nobody should be fighting. But everyone should say no. This is in our constitution. It says only man should be president. One man. You can be born in United States. You can be born in Iran. You can be born in Russia. You can be born in Africa. But you have to be a man. This is number one.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think that's true, but okay.
Okay. But anyways,
You might want to go
now
back and
that we
check the citizenship test that you took.
Yeah, now that you're done with the joke between Donald Trump, one man running, and Joseph Biden, second man running,
Okay.
because you said funny joke about what is her name, Mrs. Harry. So between these two running, I would pick the better. First of all, who has better hair? Okay, this has always been important to me. Donald
That's
Trump
true
can
because you
probably do
have
middle comb. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So just on the most important stuff is better hair, very nice color, is very gold, very American. You know, in the original American, they're all gold. Everybody looks like Donald Trump. So just for that, I will go. And Joseph, he's a very nice guy. I like Joseph. I know a lot of Joseph actually, but I think Joseph is getting to the age where Americans say he needs to. What is that? Kick bucket. He needs to kick bucket.
This is a
So
sickness of the highest
yeah,
order.
so yeah, I just know is he? I think he's still alive because he's running. Some say he is walking now, but that's just joke. Anyways, yeah. So to make this very long story
Yeah.
short,
Very long
yeah,
story.
I will be voting for United States President, Mister and one and only Donald Trump for United
Oh
States
wow. Wow.
President.
Very nice.
Yeah, and hopefully one day, I hope one day women do get chance to be president. I am not against it if we want to get 2 3 votes in Congress, overturn United States Constitution and all these things to allow a woman. I mean, I don't think anybody will ever vote, but it's okay. We can try. But
Well,
let
I
me tell
think you
you
might
from
want to. I know you've been on vacation, but you might want to go check out kind of the news because I wasn't joking. She's running for president, and you can run for president as a woman. Maybe even when and if Donald Trump gets elected, he can fix the relationship between Iran and the United States, and you can freely travel back and forth from Iran.
Yeah, this is my dream, Mr. Apologetic. I don't care who's president, whether
Yeah,
it's Joseph Biden, Donald Trump, Gavin Newsom, whether it's
Kamala Harris.
anybody. As long as I can go back to Iran and come, these are priorities. Everything else, economic, race relation, inflation, inflammation, Homo sapiens. These are all secondary issues. if Pisawi can travel to Iran to see my family, I haven't seen in a very long time. This
Mm.
is alone is enough reason for vote president.
If that
Um,
happens, maybe you and me can travel to Iran together.
Yeah, that's very good idea. We have become best friends. I haven't been on channel for a very long time,
Yeah.
but this is I'm very busy. I became very successful recently. So
Mm.
you see the new glasses I'm getting. But yeah, we can do lots of things together. And of course, I am planning, of course, to still come to your church and visit. I have just been very busy recently. So, Mr. Apologetic, I have to go now, unfortunately. Uh, my wife is calling me. She's calling me. I have to go. If you don't listen, sometimes.
Um.
Yeah, Mr. Apologetic.
Okay, Mr. Pisabi.
Okay.
I will
Have a good
see.
one. Remember, United States, number one country to the world. Joseph is okay, but he's too old. And number one, Donald Jeremy Trump. Okay. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Take care. Well, hey, we haven't seen Mr. Pisabi on here for a while, so now we know why, because he's been traveling. So enjoyed having him on. And he's always entertaining. He is the most entertaining guest we've had. I mean, there's no question about that. For those who don't know, who are newer to this channel, one time I ordered some food and he ended up being the guy who delivered the food, and he'd been on my channel, and there was a little bit of a tussle and pushing and pulling. But we've become good friends. He's come to our church and he's come to Bible studies. He regularly calls me Mr. Apologetic, which is, again, we haven't come up with the shirts, but that's a shirt we're going to come up with. And we'll have a female version maybe too. It'll say Mr. Apologetic, and then for the ladies, it'll say Mrs. Apologetic, okay? Or Miss Apologetic, whichever one you guys want to prefer. But yeah, we're going to take his tagline, we're going to put it on a shirt, and I think it'll be great. He's phenomenal. He really is. So we know who he's voting for. But I think he might need to kind of check up on some U.S. laws as to who can run and who cannot run for president. So. Oh, Jason said, I will always be thankful for Pisabi winning me a free Apologia Center hoodie. Yeah, that's we that was the like 3,500 subscribers we did a giveaway, and we'd like to do more giveaways as we hit kind of better numbers, or as our numbers go up. In the last 2 days, they've been going down, but some people might not like what we're doing here. So. Clayton says, so that guy was for real? Yeah, I mean, it depends what you mean by the word real, right? Like, so, I mean, we deal with quite a bit of philosophy on this channel. So it matters what we mean by the word real. Well, it really exists, yeah. So, we got someone else who's called in. Gonna jump in there. Peter. How may I help you? Your audio might not be working. Okay. So guys, if you're going to call in, here's one thing I would ask, that you just put on some headphones. See, I love the answers, because everybody gets. So when we say something is real, what do we mean by it, right? Like, so thoughts are real, numbers are real, but they're not in the same way real, these numbers, as you and I are real. Like, Harry Potter is real. Like, I'm getting into some metaphysics here. But when I think about Harry Potter, or say when I think about Gandalf, if I say Gandalf and you might think an old wizard with a long beard and a staff, say it's Gandalf the Grey, and he's got his pipe. These things are all real. And you're thinking about Gandalf. Gandalf, the man who stands in front of the Balrog and says, "You shall not pass," right? Gandalf. But in one way, Gandalf isn't real. So what am I thinking about when I'm thinking about Gandalf? Well, maybe I'm thinking about nothing in a Gandalf way, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm thinking about something. And the something is this person, Gandalf, who's got all these properties about him. He's got a long white beard and he lives in Middle Earth. And he smokes pipes with hobbits. So, yeah, when I think about Mr. Pasabi, we think about Mr. Pasabi in the way we think about Gandalf. And so he's real in that sense. So, yeah. Arthur speaks like a true philosopher. Hey, I'm just saying, it was a legit question right there. So I'm actually going to count that as a question. So that was question 3. Hang on, Peter. We're going to bring you in. Hopefully your audio works. If forced, what Protestant denomination would you officially join? EV free, I think. Someone might be able. No, I can't do that one. Yeah, I'll stick with that one. We're gonna check out. Peter's been waiting. Peter, yes. Okay. Sorry, man. Your audio is really, really bad. I don't know whether your internet service is bad or whatever like that, but you need to fix it. EV3 makes sense. Hey, thanks. We can see Arthur gets wiser with age. That wasn't as hard as I thought it might be. I don't even know what EV3 is. Look them up. I actually the reason why I say EV3 is because I actually like the way they are set up regarding their eldership and stuff like that. So you can look that up, Jerome. There might be EV3 churches in England. I mean, it's saying here that they started in the 50s. When the Swedish Evangelical Free Church and the Norwegian Danish Evangelical Free Church associations merged. SBC all day, son. Hey, if I had to, I guess. The question was, if forced, what Protestant denomination would you officially join? I think the question should have been, Nick, if forced, what Protestant denomination would you be forced into joining? Here, Jerome, I'm going to drop a link to the Wikipedia article, and you can read up on. Well, some Baptists are very like annoyingly legalistic, Nick. So these guys aren't really. Hey, we got to get up to 19. Sorry, 19. I'm not 19. We got to get up to 39 questions, you guys. 39 questions. That's what we're doing today. And we need to do this fast so I'm not here at 7 p.m. still trying to answer questions. Does non-denominational count as a choice? No, it doesn't. Non-denominational does not count as a choice because non-denominational means you don't belong to a denomination. He was asking which one I would join, which denomination I would join. So let me read you. This is actually cool. I didn't know this. Let me read you the notable members of the EV Free Church. I didn't know this. Walter Kaiser Jr., D.A. Carson, Chuck Swindoll. I don't know who Kathy McMorris Rogers is. Oh, the U.S. representative for Washington's 5th Congressional District since 2005. Oh, cool. Okay. There's a survival member. Okay. Peter's calling again. Peter, please make sure your audio's fixed, man. Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Okay, finally. It was just not working before.
What's up, Peter?
So happy birthday. How are you
Thank
doing?
you, man.
Good. Are you fine if I ask a couple questions and not just like a single question?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. I just kind of like want to learn a little bit like about like how seminary is.
Okay, so are you thinking about going to seminary?
Not really. I just want to know like what do they like learn,
Well, it depends. I mean, you can go to seminary and get degrees in different things. So it really depends on the degree you're pursuing.
Mm.
So I went to a seminary and I pursued a philosophy degree. All right. So my degree required me to take 60 some odd units for a master's degree, which is almost double what a normal master's degree is. From a non-seminary school, predominantly because the other 30 some odd units are theology and Bible sort of courses. So if you're thinking about somebody who goes to seminary and gets a master's in divinity degree, then they're going to be dealing with things like Bible exposition, historical theology, probably take 4 systematic theology classes. There's quite a bit of electives they can take, but there's required stuff of them dealing with the text, learning hermeneutics, original languages. So they're dealing with learning Greek and Hebrew. And then a bunch of practical ministry classes.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And so in philosophy, did you learn like about like Plato and Aristotle and the Greeks?
Yes. Yeah.
What about like later later philosophers like Thomas Aquinas?
Yeah. So my degree in philosophy wasn't necessarily like a history of philosophy. So that we need to distinguish between degrees that are history and philosophy. And it's taught in 2 different ways. History of philosophy is usually taught in 2 different ways. One of them is you do it chronologically. So you start with pre-Socratic thinkers. So Thales and Pythagoras and so on and so forth. And then you get into your Socrates and on. So that's like the AD BC kind of distinction of philosophy, right? It's before Socrates and after Socrates. And so there's a way of doing it like that chronologically. Some history of philosophy programs and courses will do it in a more thematic sense. So they'll pick a subject and then they'll go through it thematically. My philosophy degree was a was a degree in philosophy. So I took courses on metaphysics and epistemology and ethics and the philosophy of religion and the philosophy of science. So we focused on subjects how to do philosophy. So you gain the tools on dealing with you gain tools in how to deal with ideas that you might be confronted by. This is a subject that's been around for such a long time where it's very difficult to study that, all of that, and read all the material. I mean, there's a ridiculous amount of philosophical material. But if you're given the tools on how to process it properly, then regardless whether you know it or not, when you're confronted by it, then you can actually reason through it. So mine was more focused on that side.
And what's like, just out of curiosity, if you're taking philosophy, why don't you just go to like university instead of like seminary?
Well, because I wanted to get a degree with Christian philosophers. So I wanted to get a degree with Christians who do philosophy.
Oh,
And some of my favorite thinkers taught at the school I went to. And so that was instrumental in me picking to go to school there, were the professors there.
yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to ask those just because like I wanted to know more about the field, because I don't know much about seminary. And just want to know a
What's your
little bit more about
interest?
it.
Why are you interested in seminary?
I'm just learning more about people every day, but like I'm completely not interested in going through that. I'm going more in medical fields. So
Are
it's
you
not-
are
it's
you a
completely
Christian?
not- Yeah,
You're a Christian.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yes,
So yeah, like so I'll give you an example. So you're going to go into a medical field, right? Like in
Yes.
regards to like surgeries, doctors, or are you talking about like more like
yeah, surgeries, yeah.
yeah? So you're probably going to take a bunch of classes that deal with, so you'd say biology, right? There's going to be presuppositions that your teachers are going to walk into the classroom with, and they're not necessarily going to share in your worldview as a Christian. And for you, it might not be an issue because, at the end of the day, you're doing surgery on a person, say, right? Like if you got to remove their appendix or something like that, that's maybe not much of an issue. But maybe in school, it might be an issue. They might be presupposing, say, a naturalist worldview. So think about the way that you might want to medicate people. That matters. I mean, what's the issue? You might want to ask a question of whether the issue is a physical issue, or if you're a Christian, then you definitely believe that people aren't just physical. There's something beyond that. And maybe there might be a non-physical root to the problem, right? And so these things are maybe, again, more of issues in certain other fields. So I know someone who is getting their degree in neuropsychology, and that's more of an issue maybe in there, because if you have a professor that thinks that human beings are their brains, then that needs to be responded to, let's put it that way. And so Christian philosophy and theology is helpful in that. So if you're going to go into that, my recommendation would be that you might want to read some supplementary books or listen to some lectures and stuff like that on the philosophy of science from a Christian perspective. Okay, and this is not like, we're not talking creation and evolution and stuff like that. This has really nothing to say about that. We're talking about worldviews and interpreting the sort of universe we live in, and why Christians take science seriously, and in what ways, and in which ways do we agree with kind of where the general consensus is, and in which ways do we not. So those things matter quite a bit.
Yeah. So I just so those are just like some questions just out of the blue. I just want to ask to get to know you better.
Yep. Are you new to the channel? Like how long have you been?
I'm new here, maybe like a week. I just watched. Yeah.
How'd you end up here?
I just saw it on my feed and I thought it was cool.
It just popped up.
Actually, no, I'm lying. Sorry. I saw you go. I think I saw you in a debate or something, and then I joined it. Yeah.
Okay. Some kind of a discussion.
Like,
I
I came from another channel. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, welcome, man.
So-
Hopefully hopefully this will be a blessing to you, and you'll grow in many ways.
Yeah. Thanks. So like some of my like bigger questions I want to ask is like, for example, in my city, we're seeing churches that are like hundreds of years old, like being not used, and they just like eventually get demolished or be used for other stuff, sometimes sinful stuff even. And so the question is like, it feels like Christ is not prevailing, and it just like kind of
Prevailing, you
shocks me.
said.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because at least in my city, you're seeing a decline in like people being religious and even just sharing common beliefs. So what are your thoughts on that?
Um, so this might sound a little preachy, but bear with me. I suppose when people saw Jesus dead or hanging on a cross, that didn't look like he was prevailing either. And it's in the fact of his death where he's actually victorious. Right? It is in his death. So the book of Hebrews says it's in his death, essentially, that we say to death, "Oh, death, where's your sting?" It is in Christ's death and resurrection that the devil and death are defeated. So here's the reason why I say that is because of this. Quite often, we measure being victorious or what's the word you said?
Um, Prevailing.
Prevailing. Yeah, quite often we judge situations from very, very human eyes in regards to whatever it would mean to prevail in a situation, overcome, right? Be more powerful, stronger than the opponent in X, Y, and Z. And so one of the things I've realized over the last 20 some odd years that I've been a Christian is, and I've preached sermons on this, predominantly titled The Upside Down Nature of the Kingdom of God. God very interestingly flips things upside down, including his church. And so I agree that Christendom maybe is losing traction in some places in the world, but not all places in the world. Christianity is growing in many places in the world. The other thing is that I think God just generally doesn't like religiosity, fake religious behavior. For example, in the Old Testament, we see God rebuking the people of Israel and saying that your worship is annoying to me. It's like just the sound of clinging cymbals. And these are religious people who are worshiping God, and God says it's not right. You guys aren't doing it right. So, not that I'm happy that really good, ancient, well-built, awesome churches are being torn down. Not happy at that, because I think that's a part of our heritage and history in Western society. But I think if that's the thing that's keeping people from coming to a real knowledge of who God is, and quite often it is, then I think God would be the one himself that would tear those churches down. And if anybody wants some evidence on this, go read the beginning chapters of the book of Revelation, where Jesus tells the churches, I'm going to remove you guys from existence. He threatens them. And then go and ask yourself, where are those churches today? And when did that happen? If they're still around.
So you said something. You said the church is not the problem, but I didn't get the second part of that.
Which part? Sorry.
So you said the church is not really the problem, and then you said, but this is the problem. But I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, I don't know if I said it like that, but what I'm trying to communicate is I actually think the church sometimes is the problem, is what I was trying to say. Religiosity is the problem, and I don't think Jesus has any issues getting rid of churches that are a stumbling block for people to come to actually know him. Right? So again, when you read the beginning chapters of the book of Revelation, you see Jesus very clearly telling the churches, those 7 churches in Asia Minor, rebuking them for all the wrong stuff they're doing and saying, I'm going to remove your right to exist, essentially. And I just want to encourage people to go and take out a map, look at where those churches were, and then see what's going on in those places today.
They don't exist anymore.
What has happened?
They're in Turkey.
Yeah, almost all of them are in Turkey.
Yeah.
Right? There is one church in Ephesus, and I've met the pastor of that church. Right. So
So,
my thing is that, like, again, sometimes it looks like we're losing. As a matter of fact, quite often it might look like we're losing. Look at all the martyrdom stories in the Bible. It would look like Christians are losing when you look at, the martyrdom of Stephen. It would look like Christians are losing when you're looking at all the Christian martyrs being fed to lions and being burned in Nero's backyard and being, made to fight in the gladiatorial games. But in reality, Christianity through its sacrifice and love overcame arguably the greatest empire in the history of the world.
yeah.
And has had a long lasting impact on the world. And again, sometimes we get in the way of what God is doing. And Jesus speaks about this when he's talking to religious people. Right? These are the sort of stuff Jesus talking about when he talks about old wineskin and new wineskin. And again, I trust, man, I love history. I love old architecture. I love that stuff. Like when I go to my home country, the country of my birth, and I walk into a church that is still functioning, that was built in 900 AD or 1100 AD or 300 AD. There's something so unique and special about that. But again, I'm just saying, if that becomes a stumbling block for people to actually genuinely know God, have a relationship with Jesus, I think Jesus will get rid of those things. He'll be gracious and patient and all that stuff. But I think Jesus is concerned not in the beautiful buildings that we have, but he's concerned in whether hearts have been turned to him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You said that, like, you gave an analogy between, like, how the martyrs were killed.
Yeah, it looks
And
like
then,
they're
like,
losing, yeah.
Yeah, and then how, like, the church is being destroyed. It also looks like they're losing. But, like, they're almost on two different ends. In one case, you have people being so faithful that they're dying for their faith. And on the other, people are being so unfaithful that the churches serve no purpose and are thus destroyed,
That's a
And
very good
so
observation.
how is, like, it just feels like it's a completely different situation at this point. It feels like it's the complete opposite of what's happening.
Yeah, whenever you're in a situation, you kind of seem like there's no hope, and like nothing's happening. And I would just encourage people to step out of their kind of areas, if you want to think of it that way. So the global church is growing exponentially in what's called the global south. Right? Like for far too long, I could say. The church's main central kind of identity has been in the West. And you look at it, you can look at, maybe Italy was that, and then France was that, and then, Germany was that, Reformation and post. And, Spain has had that, and then England became that, and America's been that. But these things have moved. I mean, we have no guarantee that America or the West will be that. Like, I would not be in any way surprised that in 30, 40, 50 years' time, China is the central place where Christian doctrine is being taught, good theologians are being raised, or Brazil, or, a country in Africa. Like, these are global south countries where Christianity is growing. And we forget that. We kind of get caught up in our thing. I mean, one of the fastest growing church in the world is in Iran right now. And nobody talks about that. If you turn on the news, nobody's going to tell you that. It's going to, they're going to communicate information to you like, oh man, all the Iranians are, Muslims who hate America or something like that. It's like, that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah.
Because they don't, they don't look at they don't look through spiritual eyes. They don't necessarily care about these things. China has more Christians in it than there are people in the United States.
Yeah.
So for me, is we if we don't use it well, and I think this is a very good biblical ideology to have. If God gives us something and we don't use it well, God will take it from us and give it to someone else. This is a theme you see in Jesus' parables. This is a theme you, as a matter of fact, see, that the gospel goes out to the Gentiles. There's a certain kind of rejection of Israel that happens. And so there's quite a bit of that, I think, that we can say, hey, let's be faithful. And you can even boil that down to an individual level. Let's be faithful to what God has given us. Let's be obedient and faithful to his call. So I'm not disheartened by churches being torn down. I don't like it, but I'm not disheartened.
Yeah, what saddens me is that like the original community that church served is gone.
Correct.
And that's like that's what, like when I said church, that's what I meant. It's like the fact that
Yes.
the physical manifestation of the community is gone. And
So
it means
here's,
that, like, the
I did a
end
study when I was in Bible college. I did a study on revivals. And one of the very interesting things about revivals is that you see two components, right? Like you will see like an older religious component of people who experience God and kind of got stagnant and were kind of like okay with the status quo, but weren't necessarily trying to go into places and do evangelization and things of that sort. And then you see a community that gets raised up and they'll do like anything to reach the lost. And then there'll be a revival and a bunch of people will come to know him. And then all sorts of awesome stuff happens with that. And I think, sometimes, again, it's that stagnation that's happened. It's like these original communities where we're given great things. And maybe at one point, like I think it's, so if you read the book of Revelation, the letter to the church of Ephesus, he says, you've lost your first love. Come back to that, essentially, is what the word is. And so Christians ought to be aware of that all the time. Like every single one of us and every single tradition, doesn't matter to me, can get so comfortable where we actually stop caring about our neighbors not knowing Christ, about sharing the gospel with our neighbors, and maybe even when the neighbors change, instead of being antagonistic towards the neighbors, learning what the change is. So if you want to think about like generational kind of sort of stuff. So like, how do you communicate with Gen Z folks? And to some of us, so I'm on the older end of a millennial. And so, it's uncomfortable to me to a certain extent, but for the love of Gen Z folks, I do a number of things. I learn the way they speak and I hang out with them and I listen to them. What are their feelings and thoughts and complaints and all that stuff, and you try to bring the gospel into that. But if I just sat there and complained about them, then God will raise up other people that will do that job.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Do you have time for a few more questions, or? No?
Sure, yeah. Unless some people are going to be asking questions. Let me see my comment section.
All right. This is just a completely different question. Like, you said that like maybe religiosity is not like a good thing per se, but don't you think that like prescribing like a certain holy act would like make someone a little bit more religious or closer to God? Like prayer, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is prayer in your mind?
Talking with God.
Communication with God.
Yeah.
So in order for someone to have a communication with God, they actually have to have a relationship with God. Right? I mean, just biblically speaking. If that's the case, the Bible says in Ephesians that you and I, in our natural self, all human beings in our natural self, are enemies of God, children of wrath. So if somebody is in their natural self, an enemy of God and a child of wrath, and I'm like, here, pray this prayer because, you'll be talking to God. What I would think the first and foremost thing to do there is actually to introduce them to God and for them to give their lives to God. And then the discipleship happens from that point on. Go read the book of Acts when talking to a bunch of religious people, so Peter's speech on the day of Pentecost is, here's what God has done. And his conversation is to a bunch of religious people. And he says, repent and believe. Like, come to know God. That's his aim. Like everywhere they went was that message of repentance and belief, and then the rest goes. One of the things that we might want to be a bit careful about is giving people false hope and giving them false faith, is assuring them that they're actually believers when they're not, because they said a prayer, or because they memorized the Lord's Prayer, or because, you know, their parents were believers, or their culture is believers, or something like that. And again, this has been an issue in the Bible. You look at the Old Testament, not all of Israel is Israel. Not like a vast majority of them, as a matter of fact, seem to not care about God. And then God has a remnant in Israel. You have very similar writings. Like, so if you go back and read the writings, I believe if you read Augustine's City of God, Augustine is dealing with the same issue, and he's making a comparison between Rome, kind of the centralized religious place, and the city of God that is not a physical city. And so he draws these distinctions between the visible and invisible church. And I think that's, again, a part of Christian history, that is a part of the Bible, and that's some of the stuff that we need to be more attentive to, so that we're not misleading people. And I say this because I come from a culture like that. I come from 17 years of my life. I was told that I'm a Christian because I'm Armenian. And I was a heathen. I hated God. I didn't live for him. I didn't care for the things of God. And so I always see that danger of people thinking they're Christians, thinking they're good because of X, Y, and Z, whether it's the home they were born in or baptized as a kid or culturally and all that stuff. And so we always have to remind ourselves to go back to kind of the basics and say, okay, do you actually know God? I think there's a lot of other ways Christianity can influence culture, and we ought to. And we ought to be kind of forerunners in culture. And that takes quite a bit of thinking and like producing really good stuff. But yeah, I don't know whether I was, well, we look more religious, whether like I'm not willing to make that trade-off. I would rather have a pagan culture where people know they're pagans. And so when I preach the gospel, they actually see their need for the gospel. Than a religious culture when I preach the gospel and people brush you aside and say, no, we're good. If I had a choice, let's just say it was some kind of a binary like that, that would be my choice.
What I mean is more along the lines of, like, you know, for example, if let's say, like in the Old Testament, you have like prescribed acts, right? But they were
Yeah.
out of necessity, not out of like discipline. But what if, like, in the New Covenant, like, we at least like we can like prescribe prayers, like everyone needs to pray, but we don't do them out of necessity, but rather out of discipline, so that people can, like, you know, at least
For Christians, that's fine.
That's fine.
I don't necessarily have an issue with communities coming together and saying, hey, as a community of believers, we're deciding to do this. My just immediate kind of warning and wisdom on the situation would be is that people have a habit of taking things like that and substituting them for actual relationship with God. And so there's a fine line there. I mean, trust me, I'm a big fan of spiritual disciplines and us practicing these things and getting into habits where kind of they're second nature to your existence. But I think everybody that's been in the church for a little bit of time will realize that, you know, your daily Bible reading can at times become a chore and this duty and this check mark thing you do. And you're like, okay, I did my religious duty for today. And then, or you do your morning prayers and then you forget that God even exists for the rest of the day. I'm more interested and concerned about a holistic formation of the person's life and character and inner existence to be always and continuously focused on the things of God and God himself. Or I should say, focused on God himself and then the things of God.
Yeah.
So that's been the area where I've kind of leaned towards and want to pursue more because in all frankness, nothing else does it. Everything else turns into some kind of a chore or some kind of a legalistic sort of thing. Um, I was listening to someone yesterday, and I forget who it was, but the comment was made about a certain theologian, and his wife spoke about him and said, you would know nothing about my husband if you didn't know the kind of prayer life he had. And I think that speaks volumes. That's convicting as to like the quiet place where he spent personal time with Jesus versus maybe things that he did that could be seen and, books you write and whatever, all the other stuff that people do. And what she was concerned about and she thought was the best thing about him was something that nobody other than her saw. Seems like maybe his kids saw. And that's what turned him into the man that he was. Big, major people in like church history, movers and shakers in church history, have almost all of them been men and women of very, very deep prayer and commitment to Jesus. So I think that's something we can learn from.
Yep. Well, thank you. I don't want to waste more of your time. So,
Well, you
I'm
haven't.
probably
You've
gonna
asked really good questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I do have more questions, but again, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have questions. So,
Okay. Yeah, we'll see if folks want to jump in here and speak, and then if not, then maybe you can call back in.
is it fine if I stay in the panel or just mute myself?
Yeah, that's fine. No.
All right.
Okay. Let's move this to the side. I'm going to try to kind of catch up on some of these comments. Let's see. Would love to go to seminary or a scholastic biblical system, but time is an issue, and money, I would say. And I have a special needs child, and I volunteer in this class, and I'm primary care provider and altar. Jimmy, one of the things I would say, like because of the rise of online education and all that stuff, there's a bunch of schools that are offering either online programs or certificates or things of that sort. The other thing I would say is a lot of scholars have just been producing things on their own websites and blogs and ministries and YouTube channels and all that stuff. And I think those might be areas you can go to and just learn from. I'm not going to count this as a question because I don't have much to say about this, Clayton. I don't know much about it. Here's what I will say. I think people are misunderstanding Michael Heiser and speaking about that stuff. And I think Heiser's been very clear about the stuff that he believed and taught and all that. So there's plenty of information out there. I'll just stop there. And it's fair for people to disagree with, theologians. It's not fair to add a bunch of stuff onto what they actually believed. So, Arthur is now just talking about the average Ethiopian Christian. Same thing in the Armenian context, man. Look at this. We have Persians in our church who lost everything because the government found out that they were involved in the underground churches. They're highly educated and now living in Canada, working in factories. Yeah. We'll see if we'll get to question 9. 39. 30 more questions to go. Hey, Arthur, does your channel have an email? Yes. info@apologiacenter.com. Hey, where are my mods? Hey, mods, do your jobs. Come on, guys. info@apologiacenter.com. That is my email address. Ministries. It's not just a channel. This is a ministry. So... Yeah, I mean, we gotta invite Pisabi to that conversation. I think he will, considering some of the views he has about women that he thinks the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence teach. But hey, that's why I said mods, not a particular mod. But we appreciate the work that you're doing. And God is with you as you do that work. Wait, hang on. Arthur, I tried to find your email and it's not in your description or the channel page. No, that's not. That sounds wrong. I'm going to fact check you. So if you go to, what happened to the About section? That's weird. Okay, so if you go into the About section, let me actually put this up so you guys can see it. This is a way to, these are the ways to get in touch with me, or if you want to support the work that we're doing, right? So you go to this page, so that's youtube.com/Apologia Center, right? And over here, it'll say 5 more links. You hit it, and the About section comes up, and it'll give my name and all that stuff. And and then you'll see Patreon, website, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, and then there's this thing that says view email address. Look at that. And it gives you a bunch of other information. Hey, we started December 19th, 2019, when I was in Armenia. That's not bad, guys. That's not bad. Those aren't bad numbers. But 488 videos. Terrifying. And we're almost at 6,000 subscribers. We good? Everybody good? Right here. Right. Everything you need to know. Right. So Patreon is here. All the other stuff is here. We're going to redo the website soon. So watch out for that. It's okay, Jerome. It's okay. Everybody's got to learn. Hey, Excellence, what's going on, man? Thank you. Appreciate it. Should I hop on for 10 minutes and ask questions about Revelation 14:9-11 and hell, or is that too far off the beaten path? I don't know whether I will be of help on that passage. But it's your life. You can do whatever you want, brother. We live in a free country, thank God. Still, nothing's been taken away yet. I don't take for granted our freedom in this country. Please don't. Oh man, you're preaching a good passage today, or this week. Oh gosh. People are funny. I love you guys. YouTube recently moved the About section to the top of the main page. Yeah, there we go. It's okay, Jerome. Arthur, as we mature in our faith, our quiet time with the Lord should as well, right? What does your quiet time format look like? Is it like prayer, worship, and you dive into a bit Old Testament, New Testament? No. So I like to journal, and it changes. Sometimes I'll do studies in the text. I'll read other books that I'm reading devotionally. There's definitely, so when I journal, I don't just journal my thoughts. I journal my prayers. I write down my prayers. Sitting there for 20 minutes of silence and solitude is a good aspect of my devotional time. reading the text. I always pray after I read the text. I let the text guide my prayers. And that's important to me. I don't necessarily jump around in regards to like I do a little bit of New Testament or a little bit of Old Testament. What I do is I'll pick a book and then I'll be in that book for 15 days, 20 days, 30 days, 2 months. It might be multiple books, right? So I might decide to read all the minor prophets in 4 months. And then I set up that schedule and then I read it. And so, yeah. But, journaling is something that I would highly, highly encourage you guys to do. And I'm not talking about like diary keeping journaling. I'm talking about you write down your prayers. If you don't do that, it's a life changer. The email section is not on the mobile though. Oh, wow, interesting. Ethio19 says, first of all, it says, atheist blasphemer here. Well, it's nice that you actually admit that you're a blasphemer. I wouldn't have to convince you that you're sinned against God. But let's go into your question. What would you say about the Christian denominations when it comes to salvation issues, since so many genuinely believe others aren't legitimate Christians because of doctrinal disagreements? The so many that actually believe that is not important. The cool thing is that it doesn't matter what so many believe, really. It matters as to what the Bible teaches, how someone gets saved. And the Bible says if you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Christ died for your sins and rose from the dead, you will be saved. And the cool thing is that you can believe that and maybe even have doctrinal incorrect things you believe and still be saved. I mean, thank God that our salvation is not reliant on our doctrinal accuracy, because none of us would be saved probably, because all of us would have some kind of a doctrinal issue. Now, my explanation to that would be there are, I personally distinguish between like salvation versus like what identifies someone as a Christian, in the sense of there are essential doctrines that someone would need to believe in to be identified as a Christian. And so, yeah, I mean, what do I believe in that? Yeah, I think people could be wrong. I'm pretty sure some denominations started out of a wrong motive and incorrect ways of doing things. None of that really does anything to what the Bible actually teaches. That's what I believe. I sent Nick, I sent you something. I sent you an invite to an event that Fuller was doing that Emil over here is talking about. What we might want to do, Nick, is go to this Fuller event together. Meet us at Fuller. I'll bring some friends, and then we'll go to the event, and then we'll go to an event after that event. The event will be like hosted by us. Oh, I can imagine. Question. Anonymous. What should I be biblically considering if I find out my spouse has been unfaithful before deciding whether to fully separate or not? What should I be biblically? I'm confused about the question. What should I be biblically considering if I find out my spouse? I don't know what you mean by what should I be. Can you rephrase this, please? And then we'll come back to it. I think we answered some questions. We're going to go 11. What are these doctrines then? Yeah, I'm not sure whether I just want to sit down and list a bunch of doctrines because you're interested in that question. but you can look up what the essential doctrines of Christianity are and get a general sense of it. Oh, I answered 3 questions. Okay, we'll go to 12. Thanks for the... Hey, keep track of that. I wish I had a button that every time I did that, I just hit a button and it went front. This is kind of doing it in a very weird, long way. Gonna have a 6-hour stream. We'll see. Arthur, are you telling him to mostly care about mere Christianity principles for now? I just don't know what the point of his question is, considering he's an atheist and he thinks that's a problem. I mean, what? So, yeah, where does this land us? Like, just because we have disagreements amongst people, it says nothing about the truth of a matter, right? Especially if those disagreements are predominantly and mostly secondary issues. So yeah, I would say focus on the primary kind of mere Christianity sort of stuff. And then we can deal with the rest. I just don't think that's an argument. And he didn't make an argument. Fair to him. He said, "What would you say about this? Like divisions amongst Christians?" Well, I'd say all the divisions that we have, most of the divisions, maybe not all, most of the divisions we have, is over secondary issues in doctrine. Some of it seems like it's primary issues and might actually not be primary issues. It's actually. I can make arguments for they believe the primary thing. The way they explain it is different, but they don't disagree on the primary issue. Right? So there's ways to actually like think about this properly. Unless divisions amongst Christianity is going to be set up as what's the word? Some kind of an argument against Christianity. But that just makes no sense to me because truth by nature has dividing points, and that would mean we don't know anything because there's divisions on almost every single thing you can possibly think about. And living that kind of a skeptical life is impossible. MJ, do you think it's wise for a medical student or any student for that matter to question their professor while they are working towards their career? Is the trade-off worth it? I mean, MJ, why the heck would someone be in school? Are we not in school to learn? And is it not by questions that we learn? So I would say there's a certain kind of wisdom as to like how you interact with your professors. But for God's sakes, be a student. Ask questions. If my teacher comes out there and says something and I raise my hand and I say, I hear you, Prof. Could you tell me more about that? Because I'm a bit confused as to how and where that leads. I'm doing my job as a student. Now, if you just want to be argumentative and annoying with your professors, yeah, don't do that. That's dumb. The trade-off's not worth. I don't know what you mean by trade-off. Like they'll fail you or give you a bad grade. Be wise because there are professors who are I don't know what the word is. Yeah, not nice. But like questioning ought to be a part of our educational journey. And let's question. Why not? Who are some of the minor prophets you find the most interesting or have some of the best teachings? The book of Haggai, I really like a lot. And I did when I was a younger Christian, still do. I think Jonah is really, really good. The implications of Jonah and the kind of literature Jonah is very interesting to me. Malachi. Yeah. I don't just want to list like 8, 9 of them or something like that. But Haggai would like immediately be the one I would say, yeah, that's a good one. Did I go do the one question more? I'm not sure. Just gonna add one. Good question. How does one differentiate between complaining and genuine concern as a Christian? Your motivation, I mean, you can be the judge of that, but your motivation matters. So if I go to God and I say, Lord, I'm not very sure about this situation. I don't like it very much, but like, let me know what's going on. I even complaining, I think complaining, the motivation, like complaining with the motivation of being rebellious is a bit different than complaining because you're in a very tough situation, right? I'm not necessarily like, I don't think there's issues with complaining to God. I think God can handle our complaints. What are you doing? There's quite a bit of that in the Bible where people are telling God, what are you doing here? Where are you? Was that 15? The hungrier I get, the more I get delusional. It seems natural to be at least confused or hesitant about joining a tradition that is internally contentious among its proponents. I definitely fired questions like this at you at some point before. I get it. I get the concern. And it's okay. I mean, I'm not against the way he came with the question and concern. The whole I'm an atheist blasphemer thing is hilarious to me. It's like, I don't know what Christians he's dealt with, but maybe it's stuff that like people got intimidated when he said something like that. I know there's Christians that hear like that person's an atheist and get intimidated. I don't, as you guys very well know, and we shouldn't. I think that's a fair concern to have. Why are there so many differences in Christianity? But the answer to that question is a very long historical explanation. Some of it's culture, some of it's language, some of it is plain old politics. Some of it is travel back in the days, and people didn't have access to one another quickly like we do today. Some of it obviously is those things plus a theological thing. It's just like so much stuff I can say. Like every single one of those I can think about an example with it. And so, and really like most of them actually have nothing to do with like the concerns over Christianity as a system. And it maybe even allows for the differences there. I would say Christianity allows for a vast amount of differences and differences of opinion. How does one differentiate between sinful complaining and genuine concern? Oh man, I don't know. That's so much of a judgment that the individual has to make, where it's hard for me to answer that question. You know your heart, and if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, I suspect the best thing to do is actually ask God and say, Lord, reveal my heart to me. I mean, and this is a prayer that's in the Bible. Reveal my innermost thoughts to myself. God knows you better than you know yourself. And so it makes sense. And then you might get conviction over it and say, oh man, I complained there and I shouldn't have complained. And, that's not okay, and so on and so forth. But that's the way I go about it. Excuse me. Yeah, I just responded to you on Instagram. Write it there. So, in regards to, are there things that one ought to consider when deciding whether or not to leave an unfaithful spouse? My response to that genuinely is there's a number of questions you ought to consider. One of them being, do you have children? Another one being is whether this is a one-off situation. Have they been unfaithful once? Have they had have they been cheating on you for 5 years without you knowing? Have they cheated on you with multiple people? Like, those questions all matter to me. How repentant are they is a very, very important question to ask. Are they repentant? Are they willing to reconcile? Are they and you willing to go and seek marital counseling and redeem that situation? How willing are you to? And again, you're going to have hurt and pain and all this stuff, and you might not be willing right now, but be willing for the sake of the word of God, for the sake of your children, for the sake of your life and your relationship with the individual. There's quite a bit of stuff to consider when it comes to deciding that. I would say probably for me, a very important thing would be the nature and consistency of the unfaithfulness. Okay, what kind of unfaithfulness is it? How consistent has it been? How many times, with how many people, X, Y, and Z. Children are going to be very important in that conversation, and what is best for their well-being. So that's a sacrificial way of thinking about it. And it ought to be considered. I mean, there's enough research to show that it is very, very good and healthy for children to be raised with both parents. In my personal experience, again, this is anecdotal based on me, I can't think of a situation where divorce has actually solved anything. As a matter of fact, what divorce has done has create more issues and problems. And there could be a bunch of stuff, right? Like people get divorced and those individuals get married, and then you got kids from those other marriages, and then disagreement. If it's a toxic divorce, people undermining one another. There's always a constant fight over custody. Like there's so much of these sorts of things where you often wonder whether it was actually worth it. Now, there's situations where, I mean, there's, violence. There's situations where people's lives are at stake and all that stuff. Like in those situations, like get out because there's danger to you. But I'm just talking about those other situations where I'm not very sure whether it actually solves anything. It's a painful and hurtful situation to go through something like that. And so, yeah, I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. I know all the stuff that comes with that. Probably the best thing is if there's a chance of reconciliation and redemption and God patching that stuff up and repentance and all of that. That would be the best path forward. And I know it's a lot easier said. A lot easier said. Yeah. Oh, I'm not worried about somebody saying I'm an atheist blasphemer. I'm glad that they actually understand that they're blasphemers. One less thing to convince someone of. Why are there so many differences? The nature of truth is the way I would go about it, plus free will. Yeah. Truth is not the sort of thing that's very obvious. I know that seems counterintuitive, and it's true of some things where it might be obvious. But there's a lot of stuff where it's true and it's not as obvious as we thought it would be. So people disagree over it. Jason, thank you for that, man. You're being very vulnerable there. I appreciate that. Okay, what the best argument for God's existence in your view? I don't even think that I've asked you this before. Someone has asked me this. Oh man, I don't know. It just changes. I really like the moral argument. I think moral values and kind of objective sort of stuff that we expect of other people is so internally obvious, especially when we're wronged. It's very difficult to escape, right? And we can give all sorts of examples and kind of thought experiments to bring that to the surface. And then you conclude in something like, if there's a moral law, there must be a moral lawgiver, and so on and so forth. But the moral argument would be something that I would say. I like the cosmological argument. It really depends who I'm talking to. But moral argument, Jerome. You might have asked that. I'm not sure. You're saying you haven't, but you might have. Hey, Peter, is there anything... You're unmuted, so...
Oh, yeah. Sorry. But regarding like the question, if I want to comment on it, I think the Kalam cosmological argument is the best, like, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the Kalam is a great argument, but it doesn't necessarily get you to maybe a conclusion that we would like, right? So the Kalam gets you to, there is a cause to the universe. And then so you got to kind of ask, well, what kind of a cause would the cause of the universe be? And again, it wouldn't take you a long time to come up with some properties as to the cause of the universe. Personal agent, significant amount of power, significant amount of knowledge. It sounds very much like a very theistic deity. And you maybe it's the same with other arguments as well. But I think the kalam is great.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm evangelizing, I like to start with the kalam because I think for most people, like just saying that, you don't have to believe like in every single doctrine and try to question everything, but like have a solid foundation, that, something exists that created everything. And then you just add on more arguments that make sense.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fair. I mean, for me, I like to do these in kind of a cumulative case, so I bring it all together. So I like incorporating them into each other. So I like incorporating the kalam, the design argument, the moral argument. But he asked me a specific question, so I wanted to give a specific answer to that as to which one I think is the best. But morality is so intrinsic to the way we live. People who say their morality is relative are liars. I can genuinely say that. And what do I mean by that? Is that they don't live like that. Just go take their stuff. Go take their car. Go take the keys to their house. They're not going to stand there and say, well, it's relative. Right. Let them work for you for 40 hours and then give them $5. Very quickly, they will realize that they're not relativists. And so I know they sound articulate, and there's this whole thing of like, whatever, like, look, you don't live like that. You, to me, when it comes to the moral relativist, my response is, you like living in my world because my world brings about fairness and justice, and all that stuff that you enjoy. But if we were to switch it up and live in your world, it'd be utter chaos. So it's very convenient to live in my world, that the foundations of which have given kind of that, and then complain about it and not believe it at the same time, right? Like, so it's hilarious to me. So, okay, let's jump into this. I'm gonna keep you there, but I'm gonna bring. Man, you're looking good. Looking good. I want to know what that thing is you're wearing, the sweater. So here's the question I have. I can't hear you. Nope. Your audio is not on. Plug it in better. Unplug, plug. I got a question. I got complaints. Nope. Can you hear me? Talk.
Talk.
Yes. Okay. So here. I got to complain. I'm gonna take. You know what? Hang on. Can you show me that shirt again? I'm about to text that to. Did you buy that or was that given to you?
I don't want to get my boy in trouble, so I'm not going to say.
That says enough.
Hey, I didn't say anything.
I just sent him a picture of you holding that up, and I wrote, "Bro." Now,
have you written for him?
I have not. So that's fair. I am doing. I think this is fine because it's like public knowledge. Sound Faith Consulting is doing the apologetics conference, folks. In San Diego, November. I've posted it. Let me give you the actual dates. And Ruslan and I are doing the online components where we're interviewing the scholars that give the talks and stuff like that. And I think we're going to be kind of going around and interviewing some folks and talking to people and stuff like that. So this is November 22nd and 23rd in Escondido, California. Speakers are going to be some awesome guys there. So William Lane Craig is going to be speaking. Mike Lycona, J. Warner Wallace. J. Warner Wallace is by far one of my most favorite speakers. He is extremely entertaining to listen to because he's probably got the best PowerPoints on the planet. I say that as someone who doesn't know how to prepare good PowerPoints. And he does a really good job, and he presents it like he's presenting to a courtroom, which is great. And yeah, so we're involved in that. And then the online prices are like super cheap. I should actually have
it's like
Tyson.
$10 or something. Like
Yeah. It's
for
like
2 cup. Well, in this economy, 1 cup of coffee, you can hang out online.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna text them and tell them to jump on. And we can discuss the conference too. So if he's available. But yeah, so a bunch of us will be at the Evangelical Theological Society's conference or Evangelical Philosophical Society conference, and then there's an apologetics conference on that end. So if you're close to Escondido, within that San Diego area, come and join us, see us in person. Let's hang out and talk. Maybe we can grab some coffee, or tea, depending what you want to drink, or something stronger. No comment there. Right? Nick's like, who's he talking about?
Yeah, I'm an ordained Baptist, sir. I have no idea.
And yeah, and you get to learn really good stuff. One of the things is that the whole thing is going to be, well, not the breakout sessions, but the main plenary speakers are going to be streamed live. And again, like I said, the online prices are cheap. I think I saw $5, but that might have been like a little sale that was going on. You know what? Let's go to Sound Faith. Nick, you called in and now it started like promoting stuff because of your shirt. So.
Well, that's why I'm here. I just called in to wish you a happy birthday and see if you want to chat about anything.
Yeah. How old are you, Nick?
Younger than you by a little bit. I'm 37.
7. That's what my guess was going to be. Yeah, I was going to ask.
I'm told I look 45 when I don't shave and 25 when I do. So.
Yeah, I get that. If I shave clean, or if I even trim it down quite a bit, like 1 or 2, it drops like 5 years. Easy. Sometimes people think I'm 45. Also, it's because I'm grumpy.
I was going to say, that's a personality trait, my dude.
Yeah, here's a spiritual thing that some people might, like, I struggle with this. So I since I have a like analytical mind, that was mind. It's very, very easy. And this goes with like the way we speak about our giftings and the way God's wired us and made us versus like in how that can be used sinfully, you guys. It's very easy for me to walk into a situation and notice the first like 5 things wrong in that situation and then bring it up. Right? And I mean that when it comes to, it could be me watching my son play soccer. It could be me discussing theology. It could be me walking into church on a Sunday. It could be me having a conversation with my wife and my friends, where one of the things that I have had to learn and continue to learn is to not immediately bring up the criticism and be critical, and which might lead to complaining, right? So let's just say if my son plays a really, really good game, and he makes 3 mistakes in the game, and if he comes off, and the first thing that comes out of my mouth was, let's just say is, man, like, you should have scored those 2 goals. And then he like scored another 2-3 goals, let's just say, or 1, or give assists. That could become extremely disheartening to the individual. And so I've had to learn to kind of shut my mouth, and say something encouraging. So somebody told me the sandwich idea. Nick, you familiar with this? It's called a sandwich. So you say something good and nice, and then you say something negative, and then you say something nice on the back end of it. So you sandwich your negative comment in between two positive affirmations. Man, there is a situation in the Bible where Jesus does this actually, but I forgot where it is. But it like look out for it in regards to the way Jesus might speak and the way he deals with people. And I think that's wise. Like if and again, this is something that I haven't necessarily like overcome, and I got it down or something like that. It's very easy for me to walk into a situation and be like, why isn't this done? And why didn't they do this? And why hasn't this? It's super like that's me. That's the carnal kind of carnal self, if you want to think about it that way.
Well, you've never sat with me in another person's sermon, so you want comedy. Watch my expression when I'm like,
oh man,
like my wife will stop it.
Do you text?
No, I notice when other people do it, and I know that feeling, and so I try to keep my phone. I'm like, no, I will sit here with my hands in my lap, but I cannot keep the.
Yeah, so like a number of us have group messages that we discuss sermons in, like as the sermon's happening, which is great for us because sometimes it has nothing to do with criticism. It's like, it'll be like, oh, something's being talked about, and then I'll be like looking at a commentary on my iPad, and I'll take a screenshot that maybe has something more to say about what was just said, and I'll send it to whatever the 2-3 people that are in the group chat, and they're like, oh man, that's cool. Or like I'll do a screenshot of like the word study and stuff like that and send it, or something like that, or like extra comments and stuff. But it looks like we're actually like, complaining about it. Sometimes it's just not complaining at all.
Yeah, the pastor, they could tell. They're like, oh.
Yeah, he's like, oh man, those two are talking. What are they talking about?
Because it depends on the size of the church. I called a friend down in the middle. It's like 12 people in my church. So someone saw pull up the front. I'm like, is that good news or bad news? Or are you texting about me? And they thought it was very funny. So it's, some churches you can't do, but yeah, I'm awful to sit by in a sermon, especially if it's, a controversial text or I've translated that text and I'm like, that.
Yeah, it's not, yeah,
it's one of those where it's like, I can be intentionally rude sometimes to my shame, but most of it is more like, like I had a pastor, I won't mention him, but very, very wonderful human being. But in the middle of a sermon, he went off on like a 5-minute tirade about once saved, always saved, and how this, and being for it. And I'm like, I don't believe it, but it's one of those where I'm like, okay, talk about dropping a moldy sandwich into my shoe, and it's just one of those where you're like, oh boy, because that person used to ask me about their sermons, like, what'd you think? And I'm like, do you really want to know? No, I've never said that because I don't view that as my place. As a pastor, I'm my harshest critic, believe me, especially my previous two. Oh my gosh. But it's one of those where you just kind of look and go, it takes everything. It's a spiritual discipline. It's a sickness to just not react when the pastor says something that I'm like, I know that's not true, or, ooh, no, you're gonna have to walk that one back in conversation. Someone was asking if he could have some fruit. So I was like, yes, of course you can.
Johnson, we'll bring you in a second. But let me just pull this up because I want you guys to see it. Okay, so this is so if you go to the website, Sound Faith, I'm going to show you how cheap the tickets are to this, you guys.
Inexpensive. Not cheap, inexpensive.
Inexpensive.
You're getting a lot of value out of that.
Inexpensive. Thank you. See, look at that. I got corrected. English is a second language.
You are so good at everything, Arthur, but it is this, but we know that you can, survive on this.
I'm good. So look at all the speakers, you guys. Okay. So we got Bill Craig, William Lane Craig's talking, Mike Lycona. These are the heavy hitter guys, Jay Warner Wallace, right? Melissa Kane Travis. She's great. Julie Miller. I know some people. I know Tim. So Eric Hernandez been on this channel. Dan Patterson, man, he's flying all the way from Australia. He's the Aussie in the midst. He's the guy who's gonna.
That's an 18-hour flight, depending on where you go. Whew.
Yeah. Do you know Alan? Alan Schliemann?
No, not Alan. I know Brett Kunkel and Micah Kunkel. I don't know Alan.
Okay. Ryan Mullins been on my channel. Brilliant dude. Brilliant dude. Like, seriously. This brilliant man. Michael Jones. Y'all know Inspired Philosophy.
Guy's a bum. You should totally come see him though.
Michael's funny to be around. Because he's no different. You know, like sometimes people have a persona, and sometimes you might think that's Michael's persona. It's not. That's
Michael is a 55-year-old man. Like that's basically what it is.
Trapped. Ben Clifton, Laura Ziffer, I don't know Laura, Stan Wallace, and David Craig. That's a very interesting way of writing Craig. But you know, you get the schedule and all the talks and all that really, really cool stuff. So I wanted to take you guys to tickets. Check that out, you guys. Okay, so there's the early bird stuff that's very important. I think that ends September 30th. Something should have popped up on the early bird stuff.
Look at Tyson showing love to military personnel. Good for
I know,
you,
man. When I saw this, I was so happy. I texted Tyson and I was like, bro, props. You're giving, you know, military folks a discount. That's really awesome. And he knows what's up with that because he is one. So look at this, man. Early bird in person, right? So you have, if you're gonna come physically, 3 days left to get that at $49, $50. You guys, the online portion is gonna get you all the plenary speakers, and you're gonna get commentary and interviews by Ruslan, KD, and yours truly. We're going to be in Ruslan's studio talking to the individuals that are the plenary speakers.
Careful now, though. That's two of our top-tier Armenian apologists in one place.
I know,
man. You guys
man.
better have some armed security. Pasabi shows up. You guys are so screwed.
This is done. It'll wipe them off. You know, so this is a really good opportunity. If you guys are interested in those speakers and the plenary stuff, I mean, it's a no-brainer for me, man. $5, even $10. Sign up. If you guys have questions, send messages. You can directly message me. We can deal with that. So,
and if you can't make it, look, all access to recordings, like that's money, right there.
Yeah. You're gonna get the talks. And what I would say is, if you show up and you can show up, yeah, we'd love to see you there. Where's your photo, Arthur? Well, I'm not a speaker, or I'm not someone who's running the breakout groups and stuff like that. So we are behind the screen sort of folks. So our interview skills are going to be tested as we sit across Dr. William Lane Craig and ask him about his talks. So should be interesting. Oh, it's IPN Mullins. Yeah, those guys in the same place should be very interesting. No, it's a great conference, man. I've been going to these conferences. It was organized by other people. I've been going for years. And then Tyson took over, and he's organizing them and doing it in a different sort of way. And, yeah, so it'll be very, very helpful. Let's see. Jerome, I don't expect you to fly over here, but you can get... You know, $5, man. I don't know how many that is in pounds, but do it.
Probably 3 pounds, isn't their currency better than ours? Most currencies
they're British. They probably like to think so.
There's a reason we left.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I wasn't a part of that whole thing, but I get to benefit from that whole thing.
Well, you're stuck with it now, so.
Oh, man. We got someone calling in, and this is just a great joy and pleasure. So we got 2 guys here. Johnson's on. Y'all got hats, red, blue, man. Relax, you guys. Don't start something now.
These are fighting colors.
Because you guys, those are fighting colors. But I also want to bring in the Wes and James, whom I want to challenge live on air. That's a nice hoodie, man. That's not yours. Nick's the rep in that Sound Faith Consulting hoodie, Tyson.
Man, where'd you get that? I didn't give you that.
I stole it out of the back of your pickup truck when you came down to Biola.
Tyson, we were just talking about the conference, and especially for like early bird online viewers. I mean, if people can't come there, man, that's why is it so cheap? Inexpensive.
Well,
I was corrected on saying something's cheap earlier. So why is it so inexpensive?
Have you tried to buy groceries lately?
That's what I mean, right? Or coffee.
Thanks, Joe Biden.
Man, and he's not even on that Trump. What is it? Car, wagon, train.
Look, we're just trying to save souls out here, you know. So we'll take the hit on the ticket prices, right?
That's a good answer. I like that answer. You want to tell us kind of the organization behind this stuff, Tyson? I mean, you're running around and kind of tirelessly working, and there's so many components to it, and kind of the heart behind of it, as to this conference, as opposed to maybe other conferences.
Yeah, so Sound Faith 2024 is put on by my company, Sound Faith Consulting. Basically, that's right, Nick over here repping. Love it. Yeah, basically what we do and why the company started was we saw a need for people to really help out professionals in the fields of Christian philosophy, theology, and apologetics, right? They're super busy with research, writing, publishing, speaking, teaching. They don't really have time or energy or the skills necessary to do a lot of admin work on their own. And so we step in the gap and help them do things like social media management, graphic design, video editing. I also do literary agency, so connecting them with publishers, making sure they don't get screwed over on book contracts. We do public relations.
That's important.
Yeah, right. Just because a publisher says, they're a Christian publisher doesn't mean their contracts are friendly to the authors. So we try and make sure our people are taken care of. But yeah, so we help out on the back end of things so that they can do what they do best and focus on those things rather than constantly checking their social media or scheduling posts or following up with people in the comments and things like that. So it's been great so far. It just started out with me, and then we grew very quickly, so I needed to bring in a partner. My partner, Raul Jaramillo, he has been working with me at Reasonable Faith for a long time, so he agreed to come on as my business partner, and then we started gathering a team of committed individuals who can help us serve these clients, and it's been fantastic. And then this conference came about because we found out Biola was no longer going to be putting on their apologetics conference in conjunction with the Evangelical Theological Society annual meeting. So we decided to try our hand at it. It's a great opportunity with so many world-class scholars in the same place at the same time every year. So having a conference like this for lay people where we can bring that scholarship down to a popular level is just gold. So really excited. That
it's funny that last year, let me just actually make us bigger. So last year, you and I were sitting down and discussing, because we were so bummed out. I mean, I booked my flight and stay with the expectation that there was going to be the Apologetics conference. So I extended it. And then I was so bummed to find out that it wasn't happening. And I remember we went out to dinner and we were talking. We're like, man, like how would it be to, like fill in the gap and all that stuff if they're not going to do it anymore? And it's like months later, you were like, dude, we're doing this because they're not doing it. And then now seeing like we're getting closer and closer. It's like the lineup. And again, I just want to pull up the lineup here, man. Some of these people I know. I mean, it just tells you where the apologetics world is. Some of these people, obviously, I know, but some I don't. And it's just like, dude, like even like any one of these people could give the plenary talks.
Yeah.
they're all well versed. They know their stuff really, really well. Like I go to Ryan because Ryan is like, Dr. Ryan Mullins is
Honey Badger.
no. What's the? He's intimidatingly smart. Okay. is the way I would put it. I'm not saying he intends on that. The dude is just really smart and knows his stuff very, very well. I mean, this guy definitely is just intimidating, and very entertaining. But he's also very smart as well, you know. And yeah, all of these people.
Ryan's TikTok. That's where he posts all of his really snarky stuff. So if you really like snarky content, go to Ryan's TikTok.
Yeah, so it's a really, really cool lineup. Again, the prices are like ridiculously reasonable. And if you can't fly and make it, like we'd love to see you, but if you can't fly and make it, man, that's
yeah. And not only do you get to see the plenary speakers, you get Ruslan and yourself on the live stream commentary, and then everybody who signs up for the conference will get access to the recordings afterwards. So to have that level of quality content available for so cheap is really a steal.
yeah. So Bob says, I have a question for Tyson. That's Tyson James, not Jones. I don't know. That's like a character of Michael Jones and Tyson James combining together in some kind of a Dragon Ball Z character. So that'll be very interesting to see. Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm thinking. You got it. So yeah, write down your question, man. If you guys have questions for any one of the people that's on the panel right now, feel free. I'd love to not talk. Johnson, man, you just haven't said anything. So jump in there, man, because you're so patient.
No, because I didn't want to. I'm the only one who doesn't have books in my background. So I'm like, oh man, I'm not worthy.
Just say they're all ebooks.
Bro, this is not even real. It's a green screen.
Yeah, this is hollow. There's nothing in here.
Oh, man, I just wanted to say happy birthday, Arthur.
Thank you, brother.
I'm shocked that I'm older than you. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, I don't know. I just act like I'm older. You know, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, I know. Yes. Greetings, Tyson. Greetings, Nick. Greetings, Nick. I just want to show Arthur some love, man, from Canada. That's it. Just want to show you some love. I appreciate you. I love you. This is the day that God brought you into the world. How many years ago? 39?
39 years ago.
Amen. Amen. Many more, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And it's very unique to me that we actually have like a decent amount of Canadian viewers on our YouTube channel. Like I actually got on a call. This was a private thing that we did with a church in Canada where they interviewed me. I answered a bunch of questions and I had to like have dialogues, and then they took it and they threw kind of like a 1 or 2 day event where they used those videos in like preparing people to do evangelism and apologetics. And that all came through my YouTube channel, which was just like super, super cool, you know. Big shout outs to Amanda. And so it's unique. We got the Brits, we got the Canadians. Somebody joined from Africa last time. We've had people from Australia. It just goes to tell you how far-reaching some of this stuff is, you know. And how many years older are you than me?
If I tell you guys, you're not going to believe.
Well, hey.
I'm just kidding.
Say it.
I'm going to be 41 in November.
I believe that. I thought you were going to say like I'm 49.
No. I'm like 73 years old somehow.
It's like I just haven't aged. Yeah, it's weird for me because I have a brother that's 10 years older than me. So he turned 49. And that's my oldest brother. And I think some of it's like I've had friends that are like in their 50s and they're like, bro, when we talk to you, we feel like you're our peer. And I go, well, that's partly because I talk to you guys the way I talk to my brother. And so there's, it doesn't come with kind of like, oh, you're older than me and this sort of stuff. Like, so maybe that's why. And, you know, I just want to point out, by the way, there's a fascinating display of amazing beards on your screen right now. And I also want to say how everybody's beard is unique to them. Not all beards are made the same way. And you just have to embrace it. You have to enjoy what God's given you. Grow it out. It's a wonderful thing. Don't compare beards. You know, don't be like,
why do you color yours, dude? Let the gray show. Like it's God's greatest gift.
Yeah. I just want to color it white. And it's like that.
Well, then go back into pastoral ministry. You'll be white in a year.
Give it 3 months.
I didn't have any of this, and I was a youth pastor for 37 seconds.
Oh, that's good. Yes, that is good. I suppose my Young Life job will probably do that. So yeah. Thank you, man. I'm very, very blessed and encouraged by you guys. There's a lot of behind the scenes sort of stuff that people reach out and they're like, hey, you know, your stuff helped me in this and that, and or they have questions like, how would you deal with this situation? And we don't publicize those things because we don't have to publicize everything, right? Contrary to popular opinion and popular culture, not everything needs to be in the eyes of the watching world. But yeah, Tyson's got a phenomenal beard.
I was thinking about something kind of funny. It's not funny. Sad, kind of funny. You remember when Jesus transfigured in front of those guys?
Yeah.
And Peter, he doesn't know what the heck to say or do. He's like, yo, should we build, what did he say? Should we build 3 tabernacles?
Tents, yeah.
Right?
Let's build some tents.
I find that that's an example of like when we don't know what to do, so many doctrines, so many variants, we create all these things just because we just don't know what it is, you know. So I was thinking about that.
Yeah, like we got to do something.
Yeah, we have to do something, you know. Why not you know what, we should worship Eve because she was the first woman created. That's a good idea, you know, for example. So I find like that's where a lot of stuff comes from, where we just don't understand, you know. So that's what I was thinking about today. What do you think?
Nick, what do you think about that?
Eve worship?
No.
So I tuned out for like 10 seconds to miss the context.
I think the focus was like when Peter kind of just panics in regards to the transfiguration situation and he goes, let's build some tents. Let's stay here, you know. He's like, where we don't, we say random things when we don't know what to do in a given situation. That's
I find like a lot of the doctrinal fights that people have, it's because they just don't understand what the Lord is saying, you know, and they create things that has nothing to do with anything other than we just don't understand. So they create this denomination, this, you know. That's what I was trying to think. That's what I was thinking about. It's like the same thing. I don't know. What do you think?
It reveals two things. One, that we're wired for worship and sacredness. That we have I don't know the philosophical term, but we're kind of bent towards that, and so it's kind of a directional sort of thing. So, and another thing is we are very, very good in making ourselves the arbiters of things. Man, kiddo's growing so fast, Tyson. Oh,
a good-looking dude right there, man. That's a good-looking dude.
Kiddo.
I should have my wife bring my daughter here.
Hey, Nolan, come back here. I need to show you off.
Super cuteness.
But no, just that idea. It reveals our bent for worship, but it also, I think, reveals that especially when we get it wrong, there is this sort of sacredness to location and land and time and event that even if Peter's activity reveals that frailty of the human condition or the frailty of the human mind, it does reveal that there is something to be said about his example. That is kind of where we're going. and that even in those instances, God did reveal himself in those majestic moments, but then again, of course, it becomes very easy for us to essentialize that to a specific place, or God must act in this way, or this is how it always works, as if there's a formula for divine revelation. I mean, there is. It's called the incarnation, but you know what I mean. Just that kind of. But it just tells us very quickly that we are so human as to sacralize certain things, that tells us that we are sacred beings in some sense, even if we get that sacredness wrong. And so in one sense, that's kind of part of the apologetic enterprise, right? You're on the fact that you're looking for a North Star tells us that there's something in you that is good, not like an essential thing, but God is working on you.
Well,
so
yeah, I think this
path.
is like C.S. Lewis's line about like eternity's been placed in our hearts. We just have this constant longing.
The psalmist, yeah.
Yeah, and Lewis puts it in a very like interesting way as to, I forget what book this is in, but where he talks about him and his brother where they were young and they had this moment, and then it just becomes a memory that he constantly longs for, but he can't have that. And then he says, this longing essentially tells me that there's a greater fulfillment of that to come in eternity. And it's like, these guys are like super creatives and analytical thinkers, and they're able to bring that stuff together, and that's why they're so special to the history of the world. But that's such a good way of doing it. I think like it quite often happens in music, like, or through music, where we will have these experiences with God because music does something to your emotions and internal self that nothing else does, right? Maybe very few times you will have the same kind of emotional response reading a book as you would maybe very often have when you're worshiping and praising God through music. But when it ends, let's just say, like you'll be in a Sunday service, in a worship service. I'm not talking about like the music per se, because the same thing can happen with a hymn and an organ, as a band with a guitar and drums and stuff like that, as the Spirit of God, as we engage with the Spirit of God. And then it like ends, and then you're done, and then you go, man, I kind of wanted to like stay there forever, right? But it has to end. And I feel like that's what Peter's going through, where it's like this wonderful thing is happening. And then he kind of goes like, let's just like live here. Let's put these tents. And it's like, well, no, it's not going to happen. Because think about what it would look like for Jesus to be transfigured. Let me make a connection here that's very interesting, at least in my mind. Because we were dealing with this in Bible study yesterday. So God calls, in Exodus, God calls Aaron, Moses, seems like Joshua's in that group, and then 70 of the elders. Joshua's included in that 70, it seems like, up on the mountain to have dinner with him, essentially. Right? They have a meal with the Lord. And then there's this thing of like, Moses gets separated from the rest, and God says, you come to me. And then he's in this place for like 6 days, and on the 7th day, God's like, okay, you can come in now. Come in now. And then as we were dealing with that, somebody said, man, that's like the Mount of Transfiguration, and that guy shows up. Like Moses shows up, right? And I was like, yeah, that's true. Like the glory of God, like people are looking at the mountain from beneath the mountain, and they're seeing this like cataclysmic kind of fire and cloud kind of sort of stuff happening. And I wonder what that would have been like for Moses, right? I mean, there's evidences that it seems like God's glory is like kind of beyond him, where his face starts shining. And then you see that in like what would have been like for Jesus's 3 disciples to see Jesus transfigured, and the awe in that, and just the longing and wanting to remain there is phenomenal. And it's a normal desire, but I think just as much is normal for time to pass by. Maybe that's fitting to talk about on a birthday, but it's someone's birthday every single given day, right? Time just flees, and it's the sort of thing that we seem to be kind of constantly chasing and never catching up to. This is partly why I like the philosophy of time so much as well. But yeah, those would be kind of my thoughts. Tyson, you got any thoughts on this? I'm like punting philosophy of time stuff to you. Like, boom.
Well, Your birthday just reminded me of the thing that I saw about more masculine ways of saying happy birthday. Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah, it's like laudations on your trip around the sun, bro. Or celebrating the genesis of a gladiator.
That's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah.
That is a good one.
So what were you trying to get at with the philosophy of time stuff there?
No, I was just messing there. I'm just like there's an aspect of time. I mean, if we want to go there, we can. But there's an aspect of time, and God's decided to create existence in this manner where the present is always gone. It seems like, right? Like, again, there's a whole discussion as to how long the present is or whatever like that. But we have these memories. We have these precious moments. I mean, I constantly think about my kids and precious moments with my kids. And then they're gone. And then all I'm left with is a memory of the thing. And you long maybe at times. And people have told me whose kids are all grown up and married and all that stuff. And they go, man, like you kind of long in this sweet way to be able to put your little kid on your lap like you guys just did. And those things are all fleeting. And there's a sadness that comes with that. There's also a great joy that comes with that. And God wants us to exist in that reality.
Yeah, if I could just say, that's actually a big philosophical puzzle, because when you apply certain theories of time to God, a lot of people have problems with thinking of God in time. But clearly, there's a certain aspect in which God does act in temporal relations, right? Like at one point in time, he acted, whereas before that time, he did not. And if he's not in time, then how could he interact in the temporal universe? So that's what led Dr. Craig really to postulate that God was timeless without creation and then stepped into time with creation. But then some philosophers think, well, that seems to be a deficiency with God. If God is in time, then in a certain sense, he has a past, right? Where he doesn't have the past anymore because it's gone, right? That's where presentism leads. The past is gone forever. The future has not come yet, and the present is all that actually exists. There's some people that think the past still exists. And the present exist, but those are weird views. But yeah, there is a certain sense in which the past is gone even for God. And then, people say, well, how is it then that God can have his whole being in the present and not in the past and the future as well? And I don't particularly think that's problematic, and in fact, I think it would be more theologically problematic to say that God has his being in the past still. Because when you think about it, if his being is still in the past, then Jesus is still hanging on the cross in a literal sense, right? If the past still exists. If the past still exists, then God is still bringing down judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah and will never cease, right? Those things seem kind of problematic theologically. So I think it's a good thing that God is standing in temporal relations and that the past is the past, that it no longer exists. In the future, and the reconciliation of all things, in the final judgment, sin and death will be done away with. And it will no longer exist, right? Because the past no longer exists. I think that would be problematic in a view of time where the past does still exist.
Yeah. So I wrote a paper on this in seminary, and I actually had a theological argument against it. And the theological argument is based on God speaking to us in the present tense as his children. That we were once his enemies, and now we are his children, his adopted children. And I said, if we adopt a view like Augustine's view, right? Like if we have this view of God as present, holy, in the past, present, and future, then I am simultaneously God's enemy and his child, which is just nonsense, scripturally speaking. Like I want to have the confidence to say, I am a child of God, now, and once I was not. And so for me, that's an issue. I think there's some moral issues that come with that, like holding people morally responsible. It's problematic in certain areas if you hold to a view of time where somebody has committed that crime and hasn't committed it. A very good movie on this to watch is The Minority Report, where they're arresting people before they commit crimes, right? And I love time traveling movies and things of that sort. So, but the theological argumentation for me is probably the most important thing, rather than the philosophical. I think the science, I like dance around, right? So the physics of it, I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, so again, Craig's book, Time and Eternity, there's quite a bit of science in there. I took God and Time with Dr. Gary DeWeese, and he's got a book on that, and that book is really expensive. But because it's like this is one of these scholarly books on God and Time, and he deals a lot with the science behind that. I try to focus more in regards to the philosophy and the theology aspect of it. And the theological reasons are and when I say theology, I mean like the biblical text, plainly speaking, in this sort of language. And then me taking it and applying it and saying, okay, like, can this be true? And then here's the thing that impacted my life the most: prayer. My view of time, as I kind of honed it in, I said, okay, I actually believe this. Where maybe before I was like, well, yeah, I don't know. I sort of just believe what people are telling me to believe. Revolutionized the way I pray. Because every moment I talk to God is a unique moment, both to me and to God. And some people will freak out in me saying that. As if you do, then you're not understanding what I'm saying. But that will, God knew that I was going to pray. Let me just say that, because I'm not denying his future knowledge. But the experience of it is particular to me and God having that intimate experience in prayer. And to a certain extent, right, like God, if I use symbolic language, God lowers his ear to me and listens to me in that moment, and we have that conversation in that moment. And then it's no longer. And so it became a moment of encouragement for me to talk to God regularly, constantly have a conversation with God. And again, it just changed my life when it came to thinking that God is in real time having a conversation with me, listening to me, rather than, even if he knew what his answers were going to be, say, in eternity past, which I believe he knew what his answers would have been because he knew what I was going to ask. But the experience of it is in real time, rather than he just answered it in eternity past and kind of it'll happen sort of stuff. Yeah, that was just very special. And as I did my studies on those subjects, it really impacted my prayer life.
Does it impact your doctrine of eschatology or doctrine of hell? Because it sounds like that might lead you toward a certain perspective that you're presently thinking about.
You were gonna. This is why I tend to be open to certain views, Nick. Because yeah, things can stop existing. Just saying, right? But again, that's like I would just say when we have these conversations, and there's so many of these conversations being had on YouTube. When we do theology, just say orthodoxy, and like if that doesn't lead to orthopraxy, if that doesn't lead to worship, that's a problem. I just like warn people on here who will watch this, like, just don't do that. It's probably better for you not to know, because then you won't be held responsible before God, than to know all this stuff and be in all these conversations and stuff, and then it doesn't actually result in you loving God more, worshiping God more, being a better witness for Christ in your communities. Like, if that's the reason why I run the channel the way I do, because if I'm just going to be here and just have debates and arguments with people and then get in fights and then call them names and then be done with it, it's pointless. I have a lot of better stuff I can do with my life than that. But if it's actually what edification ought to look like, and at the end of edification it looks like worship, it's like, dude, all day, every day.
Yeah, I find that the current state of my algorithm on YouTube, if I click on one debate and it shows like someone's face and someone says I roasted this person or whatever, every other video just has the same thing, and it's just like it becomes kind of draining to me personally when there's individuals who be like, I'll argue against you any day, anytime, any place. And I keep saying, like, there was a point when I used to watch Jerry Springer. He's not alive anymore. I don't watch Jerry Springer. I don't watch Maury Povich, right? But on my YouTube timeline, it appears through debates. But I get it, though. Like,
a bunch of Christian Jerry Springers.
Jerry Springers. There's a place for Apologia, right? Apologists. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find like it's just super saturated with debates and arguments and debates. It's like I kind of want to learn how to be patient with my spouse. Can someone share their ways to how to be patient, or I want to learn how to be more like Christ. And I get it. We cast on arguments and all that stuff, but it's just sometimes it's just too much. It's so draining. I don't know if you guys find that, but I find that for me, it's kind of super draining. I don't know.
Constructive content doesn't make your channel grow.
Preach it. I got buttons for that stuff.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Ooh, Gladiator 2 coming up.
Is this not why you are here?
Shout out. So yeah, I mean, look, if we made a video and then we titled the video, "Learn Patience," we're gonna sit together for an hour and a half. Probably not gonna get a lot of clicks, right? I destroyed Nick Quinn's theology on egalitarianism because he's a heretic. Lots of views. At least four. Every single one of us, I think, need to answer the question as to who we answer to. Are we going to answer to God, or are we going to answer to the algorithm? That's not a question that people would have necessarily asked 10, 15 years ago, right? That comparison wouldn't have been there. But if we're going to be on the internet, we're going to try to engage with people. That really needs to be a question. Why we're doing this stuff, what we're responding to, who we're responding to. There's lots of words being shared. The Bible talks about giving an answer for word and deed. So we got to be very careful with that. And maybe, it might not make it grow. I think there's some wisdom in regards to using that stuff and being, as Jesus put it, right, wise as serpents and as harmless as doves. There is some of that. But if all we find is just argumentation, I just that's a motivation issue for me. It's super draining. But by the way, that's also why you're going to see a lot of these guys quit doing this stuff in 2, 3, 5 years. It's not manageable. You cannot maintain that kind of a life. It will eat you up. You will be drained from it. People will get tired of you. They'll drop you like a bad habit. And then that's it. Or they'll come out and say, "Oh man, I just had an epiphany. God convicted me. I've been in sin." And it's like, yeah, well, some of us were kind of saying, be careful with doing that stuff all along. I'm glad, you learned 4 years down the line. And some people's journeys are going to look like that. And I say that because that's the reality of pastoring people in the church. You'll have a guy who's got Nick's like, yeah, you got people in the church who have bad characters, and then you kind of warn them and tell them, it's like, don't do this, do it this way, do this other way, and they kind of don't listen to you, and they come back to you 2 years later, they're like, man, I should have listened to you. And you kind of look at them and say, God is gracious, and you should have, but here we are, and so I'm
Welcome
glad
to the party, pal.
Yeah.
Congrats, you finally seen the light.
Yeah, right. And it's better to see that now than ever. And I said this yesterday. I said, I did a lot of stupid stuff when I was a lot younger. I thank God that there wasn't a camera attached to me, and I wasn't
Just
sitting
when
in front of a
you were
camera.
younger, huh?
What?
I said just when you were younger, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, he just got older today.
I just got
younger. Yesterday.
I'm just talking about when I was 38, man.
Although does younger still exist? I mean, does it?
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Considering the time stuff we were just talking about, it doesn't. But yeah, I feel bad to a certain extent, especially with the younger generation, who are growing up with a good amount of their lives living it in front of other people. And so, man, did you guys see this thing with Justin Bieber, the song that PBD put it out?
I'm an old man, dude. I took me a second. PBD.
I don't think I've ever listened to a full Justin Bieber song. Let me just say that. But
your ears are blessed. No, he's actually really talented.
He's a very talented. I had the opportunity to actually meet his mom one time at a movie premiere for an anti-abortion. Yeah, it was it's a short film. It was an 11-minute like feature film. I knew the guy who was producing it. She was one of the producers on it, so we were at the showing of it. And because he was supposed to be aborted, there's a whole story of Bieber.
Hey, I gotta hop off. I gotta go be a dad.
Oh,
good seeing you, Tyson. Y'all,
go for it.
Thanks for repping, man. See ya.
So I want to pull this.
Well, while you're pulling that up, can I just say something on what Dustin was saying earlier? He was talking about, just the heaviness of seeing like just debates and controversy all the time, and by now, totally get that.
Go for it. You're good.
I totally get that, having worked in the field of apologetics for like 8 years now. Like, it can be wearing on you. I do think it's important to recognize that God gives the body of Christ so many different personalities, and we absolutely need some passionate, bold, courageous truth sayers who are willing to step on toes and address certain issues in a way that is going to reach other people, where a more gentle and tiptoe approach won't reach them. I think of like maybe David Wood when he's talking about, or Michael Jones when they're talking about Islam, right? There are so many Muslims that come out of Islam and say, I would not have come out of Islam without a certain level of mockery of my religion, because I wouldn't have taken it seriously, right? So in a certain sense, I think it's important that we have this range of personalities. And I think at certain times in our lives, we're going to be more prone to, those forceful conversations, like maybe when we're younger, especially. But then as we grow older, we want more peace in our lives. We want the stability for our families. We don't want to surround them in hostile conversation, right? And so, yeah, I think we're going to go through those cycles in our lives where, yeah, we want to engage in more forceful conversation, and that's needed. And then there's other times where God is pushing us into something less
confrontational.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all about the rules of engagement. Okay. So there's like cultural rules of engagement in communication as to how rough and, we can be. The way I talk to non-Armenians is not the way I talk to Armenians, especially about faith and stuff like that. And so I mostly have an issue with like inner Christian dialogue. I'm not even talking about non-believers. I'm talking about Christians talking to each other and being silly. A really good example, I would say, of something that was done recently is when Bill Craig debated, I don't know what we want to call that. Whatever that was, Muhammad Hijab, who is just Muhammad Hijab just tries to be a bully. He's just that kind of an individual. And here's what the very interesting visual presentation was. Dr. Craig is a scholar who's debated like the best of the best. Gracious, bold, knows how to speak about things and articulate and explain stuff. Muhammad Hijab, young, arrogant, obnoxious, annoying, disrespectful to an elder. You just keep going, right? Visually, when you watch that, if you were just someone who you were an atheist guy, you don't like Hijab or Craig, and you watch that, you would have walked away and saying, wow, what a patient man. What a gracious man. Yeah. Because it was obvious.
I'm the admin of the Reasonable Faith YouTube channels. And so I see all of the comments from that conversation. And we had atheists and even Muslims who were saying, gotta take your hat off to Dr. Craig for keeping us cool, arguing rationally, really showing his background.
Yeah, not taking the bait. You call God a 3-headed dog. We don't even call prophets that. You're finished. I finished Dr. Craig, right? It's because, and I knew it. I was like, oh, he's going to go on his channel. He's going to be like, I debated the best of the best. And like he went on and somebody had challenged him to debate. And he said, I've already debated the best Christian apologist out there. There's no one else I can debate. Because it's just like, bro, like the funny thing is that Dr. Craig has debated the best in the fields, whether the atheist, Shabir Ali, I would consider is probably one of the best.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that stuff, and Dr. Craig could have said, I've debated the best. Why would I talk to Muhammad Hijab? He could have, rightly so, right? And he didn't. And so, but again, like the Christians kind of misbehaving in that is my issue. And I don't have any issues with people being bold. You can be bold and in your face and say it like how it is, and be gracious in saying so, and be reasonable in saying so, and point out the flaws. If the rules of engagement are proper, in regards to rules of engagement, sorry, I just thought Jerome wrote, Arthur, but 2 candles form a bigger flame. Yes, Cameron did a thing that was hilarious, I thought, where he's just lighting a candle. It was so witty and good. He just does the same thing. It's like, who's that guy that does that? So here's what I wanted to post this, man, or point this out. Check this out. They're talking about people kind of living in front of the camera and having fame and all that stuff.
We played that here on the podcast.
Yeah, but we not played it. But go ahead and play this clip, and it's called Lonely. Okay, go ahead.
Everybody saw me sick, and it felt like no one gave a shit. They criticized the things I did as an idiot kid. Oh, what if you had it all with nobody to call?
Nobody to call.
Maybe then you know.
Sure.
'Cause I've had everything, but no one's listening, and that's just fucking lonely. I'm so low.
Dude, I've listened to this hundreds of times, and I feel for this guy.
So I watched this yesterday, and it just popped up on my feed. There's a couple of things that stood out. One was when he mentions like I did things as an idiot kid, and I was like, man, who hasn't, right? And he did it in front of the whole world, and I'd stand there and say, yeah, I was one of the guys. I was like, nah, that guy's a clown. I'm not going to listen to him. I'm going to encourage people to listen to him. And I'll stand by that. But so Khachik told me about this. He's right, but I had listened to it. Khach, remember our conversation? I said, yeah, I listened to it. And we both of us had like very similar things. Like, man, like, so many people watching and going like, I wish I was in that guy's shoes, right? I wish I was making that kind of money. I was that famous. I'd like people falling, fainting if they see you or whatever like that. All sorts of weird stuff that people do because of the celebrities. And being in a ridiculously lonely place where he says, I had nobody to call. That's sad.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of data that's come out recently on generational kind of stuff and the things they care about, and all that. Maybe I'll do a stream and explain some of that. But one of the markers of the younger people growing up right now is loneliness, which is so ironic considering that everybody's got 5,000 friends on Facebook, or they're not on Facebook, but followers on TikTok and Instagram and whatever, and they have YouTube channels and all this stuff. And that's what I'm talking. It's like the burnout. And then they get to a place, and I don't know how old Justin Bieber is now, but you get to this place where you go, man, like, I'm still lonely. I need community. And I think, again, because I view Christianity as
Community.
a worldview answering these questions. It's like, oh man, yeah. Here's an answer to your question of loneliness. The church. There's people that'll love you. There's people that'll forgive you. There's people that will be understanding. There's people that will challenge you. There's people that will rebuke you. And frankly, and ideally speaking, they won't care how poor you are, how rich you are, how pretty you are, or how ugly you are. Because the standard is not based on any of that stuff. The standard's the Bible. That's it. And that's cool. That's like refreshing. That like brings you down to earth, you know? I just love that stuff. So, but that was like, it was heartbreaking for me, man, when I listened to it.
I just looked it up. He's 30 years old, Justin Bieber.
Justin Bieber's 30 years old. Yeah, and I'm not even, I think PBD is, like the way this video is titled is called Price of Chasing Greed, Diddy and Bieber's Friendship Under Fire After 48-Hour Epic Stay at Diddy's. Like there's this video that came out where P. Diddy's like, hey, I got 48 hours consensual rights over him or whatever like that, whatever it's called. And all the stuff coming out about this guy, you kind of go, oh man, like your mind immediately goes to the worst of the worst.
It does. It goes to that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and would it surprise us for something like that to come out? Like, would it surprise if Justin Bieber came out and said, hey, yeah, this and that happened? Like, that would be so heartbreaking. It's so much rage and anger in a lot of people. Maybe even guilt or just not caring and how the industry abuses people and does all this stuff. And all those, I heard someone saying it was, they said something like, one of the things we're realizing in our culture is that God is breaking down our cultural idols and icons. And it's great. It's, you know, whether it's the political ones, whether it's the entertainment ones, like all these people we grew up watching and listening to, like end up being weirdo creeps. And you kind of like, oh man, I don't want to, I'd never want that guy around my family. And it's great. And because I think it's great because that makes people ask the important questions of life where the Christian can walk into it, and Christians who do apologetics and say, we have a reason for this. We know why people do this stuff. We have an answer for this. And here you go and provide that for the world. It's glorious. I think we should take advantage of this. I mean that in the good way. Like take advantage of it by saying, hey, we have an answer for the pains of the world. And that's apologetics for me. We got to be quick to do it.
There's a girl, her name is Courtney. And she just has a channel called like A Fresh Word. And she said like the Lord was speaking to her and he said the age of celebrity is come to an end. And this was a few months ago or whatever. And you could see it happening right before our eyes where, you know, young people or whoever, they idolize that movie star, that singer. And it's like all of that's coming to an end. And yeah, like you said, like it's a great time for the harvest. It's right there. You know, so yeah, man.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing about the church, like considering, you know, pastors or leaders who've fallen. And there's conversations happening. I know it was happening in my church with our friends. It's like, hey, should we like cap what church growth would look like? Do we really want to have a church of this many people? Right. Again, I'm not giving numbers because I don't want to get into all legalistic kind of sort of stuff. You know, is it 300? Is 399 okay, but 400 not? You know, like bro, you know, having conversations about silly stuff. But like, is it normal and natural for us to have some kind of a demand on where like every single weekend, every other day, you're traveling somewhere else and speaking, and what that can result into? As a matter of fact, Tyson, I mean, a part of this conversation, we spoke about Bill Craig, and I brought up how Dr. Craig leads a Sunday school class at his church almost every single Sunday. And me and you were talking about like the size of that class and considering like the offers he could take to speak anywhere else in the world. And it was just like, the guy's so committed to teaching a Sunday school class to his local church.
Yeah, there are thousands of people that go to that church, and maybe, you know, like 15, 20 show up to his class. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. But like, that's commitment to loving your local community and using your gifts for your local community. Because it's funny, but we've been talking about it, doing Sunday school classes, and we've done one, and Usually when you do a Sunday school class, like the first week, you'll have a bunch of people show up, and it kind of dwindles, and you get this core of people staying. And one of the guys was discouraged that the numbers had gone low, and our church not big, And then I said, bro, like percentage-wise, you're getting a lot more people than Dr. Craig does. So like, be encouraged. But the consistency of the man, consistency of, being loyal and faithful to a local congregation and all that stuff, it just matters, man. It really matters. And so in regards to we can talk about kind of celebrities that we make out of people. It's very important to have a normal view and for people not to take themselves that seriously. That's very important. And maybe not allow yourself for other people to take you that seriously. Now, you people could say, well, Arthur, you're speaking from, kind of a place where you don't have that kind of attention on you. And you're probably right. That's probably true. But one of the things that we can do is surround ourselves with people just in case you get that kind of attention, what that would look like, and how those people would kind of say, hey, stop. Like the constant chase maybe for attention, the constant chase for popularity. Like you go around to any young person, ask them what you want to be when you grow up. People don't say things like a mechanic or a fighter or a policeman or something like that, or a teacher. Generally, young people are talking about like, oh, I want to be a singer. I want to be a YouTube star. I want to be a TikTok star. And like, it always has to do with like this connection to being really famous and popular. Where you become, let's say even athletes, you become the athlete, not because you love the sport and you want to play it, but you want to become the athlete because you want to be famous. Those are two different reasons. You can want to be an athlete because you love the sport you're playing. Right. And I would say that's probably a healthier route to go. Then that's your mechanism to fame. That's a problem. Because when you get it, you're going to realize it's very empty up there. And then you're going to go into depression. So, man, we've gone like everywhere with these talks. I don't want to keep you, Tyson. If you want to go,
why not?
I'm not telling you to go. I'm not telling you to go. It's just weird. I don't know.
Is that someone that joined?
No, nobody's joined. I just have that silhouette of a person so we can have better screens.
Johnson, I'm so glad to meet you. I've never met you before. Where in Canada are you?
Toronto.
Oh.
Toronto, yes.
One of the only Canadian cities I've been to.
Yes. How did you like it? Good.
I don't remember much of it. It was when I was younger and I attended a Blue Jays game.
Hey, okay, sweet. Well, and you're from the same place. Where are you from? United States?
Yeah. I was born in Illinois and then moved when I was really young to Arkansas. So I grew up in Arkansas, which always surprises people. They're like, "You don't sound like you're from Arkansas." Like, you can hear my brother; he sounds like a straight hillbilly. So
when you said brother, it came out.
Yeah, my brother.
My brother.
Oh, I can talk like that if y'all want to.
All right.
Can you do a heavy Middle Eastern accent as well?
Yeah, please give it.
Ya habibi, ana استطيع أن أتكلم بالعربية إذا تريد.
So Tyson was a linguist in the military, so he's got his Arabic down. That's why all the
my wife, I've been out of the military for years now, and she's like, "How do you still remember more language than I do? I just got out of language school like a couple of years ago. You still know more than I do." Like, I don't know. I just have a knack for languages.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, man. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too, man.
Nice to meet you.
It's fun.
So how do you two know each other?
YouTube.
Yeah.
That's it? Okay, fine.
It's pretty simple.
YouTube, yeah.
Yeah, Tyson is crazy, man. Like behind the scenes, there's a lot of cool stuff that ends up happening. The best one is people giving their life to Jesus. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. And then being involved in the discipleship of those individuals to a certain extent. has been really, really cool. This doesn't happen often, but sometimes people have reached out and we've been able to support them and help them in various ways. Like those things are really, really cool that we get these access to people, various places. And then just the messages that people send, hey man, or even the comment section, hey, thanks man, like, oh, I was thinking about that, and that what you said clarified that. I'm like, cool. You know, like the gentleman that called earlier, why am I forgetting his name? Our first caller, Clayton. Clayton said that he was kind of like considering Eastern Orthodoxy because he was dealing with the subject of theosis and all that stuff, and then found a video where I interviewed Dr. Carl Moser on theosis. I don't know if you remember, Tyson, we were standing outside, you, me, and Dr. Moser at ETS last year.
Yeah.
And so I interviewed him on theosis, and he was like, man, that was very helpful. And he's like, that's how I found your channel, because I was doing research on that subject. I came across that video, you know, and it was helpful for him. And I was like, great, I'm going to send him a message and be like, hey man, here's your video, really was beneficial and a blessing to someone. So that's cool.
And then we went to a Spurs game.
We did go to a Spurs game. That's true.
I'm gonna have to. All right, guys. Good night. Nice to meet you, Tyson. Happy birthday, Arthur. Are you gonna have cake later?
Probably, but I had cake yesterday, and then I had a crepe yesterday, and I'm probably gonna have more cake today. Yeah, I just. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Beards United. Have a good night. Happy birthday,
Yes,
man.
sir.
I love you.
Thank you, man.
I love you guys. Later.
Bye. What is this comment? A Bible study. What is this? Oh, yeah. There you go, Arnold. Thank you, man. Here, look at this comment, Tyson. A Bible study was even created and facilitated through your ministry. So there's a bunch of guys that are meeting on Tuesdays, I believe, Tuesday nights. And Arnold's leading it, and they're going through the book of Hebrews on Discord, like people from all the different places. So that's like stuff like that happens where I'm not even involved. They told me, they're like, hey, we're running a Bible study on your channel. I was like, okay, have fun. Like, I can't be there, but I love the fact that you guys get to interact with each other and get to know each other, and you're being a blessing to the people, and they're learning and growing in their faith. So
I keep trying to tell people this is the best apologetics channel in the world. They don't listen to me.
Yeah, I think it is. Not to get too cocky. I want to let's talk about the conference a little bit more. What are you seeing in regards to I'm going to tie it into the conference, because I think when people started doing conferences of this sort, whatever. So I'm just going to come up with a number. 30 years ago. The world looked very different 30 years ago when you do a conference and then you're like, we got this guy and this person coming and speaking. And they're like, oh man, I've never heard this person. Let me go. And then you get kind of the advent of the internet. And it's such a great thing that we get to have access to lectures. We get to have access to interviews with these scholars. And there's so much stuff out there. And then now we're doing a conference where we're inviting people to. Like, what are the benefits of that, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah. So one of the things, you can find thousands and thousands of hours of apologetics content for free anywhere, right? I mean, it's just out there. You go to the Reasonable Faith website, you can get like a bajillion articles, and you can buy books and all that. What you get from an apologetics conference is something that you touched on earlier. First of all, there are people who long for community. They don't want to feel lonely. At a conference, you're meeting people who have a hunger for truth, have a kindred spirit, have a heart for the lost, and you're all coming together and sharing this spirit with one another. You're also encountering people that maybe you differ from. Like sometimes skeptics come to these conferences. For instance, the Faithiest Atheist is going to be at this conference, right? Richard is going to be at this conference. So you're going to meet a lot of people that maybe have different viewpoints than yours. That's also a great thing, right? It's our mission to reach the lost. And this is a great opportunity to do that and invite people to hear the gospel. Another thing is mentorship. There are a lot of people in churches right now who are not being discipled. They're not being mentored. And they're being mentored from afar because they watch the videos and read the books and the articles of certain apologists. And at these conferences, you're getting the opportunity sometimes to directly interact with these people who have spoken into your life and helped you grow in the Lord. And actually, this is one of the things that I really wanted to focus on with my conference was I wanted to incorporate dedicated time for the attendees to personally interact with the speakers. So after each of the breakout talks is going to be an hour long. They're going to have 40 minutes of lecture, 20 minutes of Q&A. Right, so a heavy portion of each session is going to be Q&A, so people can directly ask questions. And then not only that, but in between the sessions, we've incorporated a lot of time for people to just hang out outside of the rooms, in the hallways, outside, where we're going to have food trucks. That's one of the great things about these conferences. You've been to these conferences. Some of the best conversations happen around the information tables or in the hallways, not even in the lectures themselves. So I really wanted to build that conversational, interpersonal interaction into the conference.
Yeah, I think it's also just like very encouraging to be at a conference like this in person, because sometimes you end up being like the only person at your church that actually cares about this, and it gets really lonely, and you kind of sound like this, this track on repeat. You're just saying the same stuff and you just seem like people don't care or whatever like that. And it's just encouraging to be around like-minded individuals looking at that kind of stuff, and maybe even, meeting people you look up to and that are heroes that that you want to learn from. That's super encouraging. And being encouraged by them. I got a book. I should pull it off the... gotta find it. I might not find it. Okay, so I have a book on. It's an argument for the resurrection of Jesus, and it was a debate that was done in person. And it's Bill Craig and Gert Ludemann. And
I have that one.
Okay, so I bought that book. I don't know where it is. So I bought that book at the debate that William Lane Craig had with Christopher Hitchens, and I also bought, in all fairness, I also bought Christopher Hitchens' book, he was on a tour for that book called God Is Not Great. And I stood in line and I had Chris Hitchens sign it. And I stood in line and I had Bill Craig sign that book. This is before I went to Talbot. And I had like a year left in my program and stuff like that. And then William Lane Craig signed the book, and then he wrote a Bible passage in there out of Corinthians, demolish arguments, so on and so forth. And that was encouraging to me. And he just wrote, man, keep at it, Arthur. Just a quick thing. I got a book in here that Paul Copan has signed. It's like, brother, I love you. Keep doing what you're doing. Those are encouraging things that you hold on to, especially in times where you're kind of like, man, is it like really worth it? Like, is this stuff, really worth it? And then it's these people kind of cheering you on, these guys that have come before, kind of trailblazers and stuff like that. And maybe in conversations you say something and then they go, man, that's a really good idea. I've never thought about that. And you're like, what? Like, I thought you've thought about everything, right? That's kind of the way we view people. And then they're like, you should pursue that, or think about doing this with this person, or oh man, I know someone who does similar things, and they connect you somehow. These things all happen in person, which is really cool. And I've had every single one of those things happen. I've literally had conversations with people and they've told me, wait. And they've called someone over and said, you have to talk to this guy. Like, this guy would be really, really good on this subject. And then like a friendship has started from that. And if you can't make it because of flying and all that stuff, like I get it. There's all sorts of stuff. Definitely the online stuff is like, I don't know, man. I sort of feel like you're giving it away for free because $5 is. Let me just make a comparison. I take my son to a soccer game, and the parking admission is worth $10. And so, if you've bought coffee recently,
Vegas, you go downtown Vegas, you might be paying $20 for parking sometimes.
If you grab coffee to drink and anything like that, if you're one of those people who's like, I'd like to ice latte, chai, whatever, X, Y, and Z. I just get regular coffee, but some people like that stuff. It ends up being like $8. You can definitely get this and benefit from it. And it will be good for your soul. It'd be good. But if you can make it in person, like you're going to get so much more out of it. There'll be really cool people to hang out with and talk with and ask questions to in person. So, yeah.
If I could add too, people who attend in person will be getting even more value because we're actually giving away thousands of dollars worth of resources at the conference. We acquired a lot of apologetics books and DVDs not too long ago. And J. Warner Wallace has offered to also send copies of his book to sell at the conference. So we're going to be giving away some of those. Yeah, so people who attend in person are really going to be hooked up with a ton of free resources as well as discounted books that they'll be able to pick up while they're there.
Kajik said, is it in Vegas? It's not in Vegas. It's in San Diego. It's in Escondido.
I would like to have a conference here.
Yeah, because
it's a little harder to get good Christian professionals to come out to Sin City, though.
Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it?
Except for, when there's a YouTuber conference. And
when there's a YouTuber conference, then, that they have it in Vegas, and then we go to Vegas, and then I get to meet up with Tyson and have... That was some really good steak we had, man.
Oh, man. So good.
That was some good food. Yeah. I see my popularity precedes me. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but they've been having a conversation about Davids. There's a bunch of them. When? Just name the date. Oh, in Vegas. He just wants to go to Vegas, I think.
Who is that?
This is my friend. Let's do it. Yeah, it's every time that I get to be in Vegas, I think is a time to meet up with Tyson. I think one time I texted you and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to be here." It was like a last minute thing, and you were like, you were traveling somewhere. I think we could meet up, but
I was gone. I don't know what I was doing.
But you travel. Oh man, happy birthday, Arthur! Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I made that crown all by myself.
Still such a youngster.
What'd you say?
I said you're still such a youngster, though.
Well, I don't view myself as old. I don't act old. I act grumpy, but that's not an age indicator because there's old people. There's
You're like, I've been grumpy for years.
Yeah, I've been grumpy since I was 11. Like, sometimes, most of the time I'm actually pretty lively, extrovert. Yeah, I know there's 70-year-olds that act very, very young. One time I was in chapel in Bible college, and the lady that was speaking, man, I would say she was in her 80s. She might have been 85 years old. This lady did missions work with like orphans somewhere. And she had more energy than an 18-year-old. I was just like shocked. The way she was moving around, the passion she was speaking with. Sometimes it's just like your body just doesn't do the stuff that you want it to do. And I was like, I can totally see why this woman is perfect for what she's doing. Like just interact. I wouldn't even be surprised. The reason why she's like that is because she's been doing that kind of work. It's kept her really, really young, and it was fascinating to see that kind of this excitement and joy.
Did you ever hear of Tuesdays with Maury? As a book by Mitch Albom. But anyway, it's a story about this guy who basically, would help out this guy named Maury on Tuesdays because he was elderly and just needed help. I was in a situation like that in high school and college. I was helping out this lady. She was born in 1920. And so this would have been like late, just after the year 2000 sometime when I was helping her out. So she was about 80 years old. And I would go over there once a week, help her. Like sometimes I'd take her grocery shopping and do, housework for her or whatever. But she was just like what you were talking about. She would do all this stuff on her own at 80 years old. Like she'd be dragging out big bags of topsoil to do yard work. I'm like, ma'am, what are you doing? You're going to break things. Like, there's no reason you need to be dragging topsoil and doing landscaping at your age.
It's crazy. It really is. Yeah, I think, the other thing is just, maybe these are like negative connotations we have. Like aging is just seen as a bad thing. And I've never been convinced of that. I've enjoyed aging. Now, physically, I'm not enjoying aging. Really that. Like, partly because of, like, I've been struggling with my knee. I kind of messed it up. And it's not healing. It's not recovering the way that it would have. But there's so many more components that are, like, a lot more important to life than that, right? Like, I can, without any hesitation, say I'm a more patient person now. With that comes, I'm just bothered by noise a lot now, where I wasn't previously. But that's partly because I have 4 kids, and there's constant noise in my house, right? Like, and it's like random noise. I actually tell my children, I'll yell out their names, and I'll be like, stop making unnecessary noise, which I distinguish from necessary noise. There's noise that's necessary. It just happens, right? Like they're practicing the piano. That's okay. But if it's just like, I got a stick, I'm just going to like hit on the wall. It's like, okay, chill.
If you're choking on food, get my attention. Make some noise.
Yeah, no, yes. Those are the things. Like we should reframe the way we think about these things. I would say the same thing when it comes to children. Like our culture has a negative connotation when it comes to having kids. Think biblically is what I would say. Children are seen as a blessing from the Lord in the Bible. So we need to change the way, like we shouldn't go with the way culture goes with that. With age comes wisdom. Ideally with age comes wisdom. So look forward to aging and becoming more wise and speaking into people's lives and discipling younger men and women, pouring into people's lives. Maybe if you can't move faster and do all that stuff, that gives you an opportunity to sit with people and actually disciple them and share your life experiences. Like that, those are such important things that will be life-changing for some individuals. And you don't know how God's going to use them and what he's going to do. David said, noise and lights. Thank you, David.
I'm reading a book right now called Why Fathers Matter. And obviously it's talking about the importance of fathers in the home for children and things like that. But it also has a section on why grandparents really matter and why they are so overlooked in the child rearing and how essential they are, the different roles that they play. And it's just fascinating to see all of these different facets that are so de-emphasized, that older people bring so much to the table that other generations they've recognized, especially cultures where extended families live very close together.
Yes.
They understand the value of older people. Now you have families that are living all the way across the country. You're not sharing life together, but they talk about how grandparents are the link to history. They know all of the details of the past that led to the family to where it is now. And so they can share those stories in a way that nobody else can. They're also the bearers of a lot of the family values. Like they're kind of like the people that have been there through all of those, important stages where values were tested, and they can speak those values into the lives of grandchildren. They also are a source of play. Like, grandparents love to play with kids because they know they can give them back to the parents. They really
like, we'll take them for a day. You come take them back.
Yeah. So there's just so many great things about grandparents. So unfortunately, I did not live close to mine growing up. They lived in Ohio while I grew up in.
So here's the thing: all of my grandparents were dead by the time I was born. I did not grow up with grandparents. My wife, on the other hand, grew up with her grandparents. In the last 5 years, she's lost 2 of them, both of them in their 90s, mid-90s. And like when she tells me about her experience, like, oh man, like every Monday we used to go to my grandma's house and she would cook for us, and like all these sorts of stories. And my kids have all their grandparents. And just like going over to my parents' house, my wife's parents, and just again the play, all the stuff that comes with that, is so healthy and good. Here's the other thing I'm going to bring into this, and some people have done research on this, and it's particular to societies, specifically Armenians. Because of the Armenian genocide and because of how recent the Armenian genocide was in 1915, a vast majority of people, say our grandparents, those people that went through the genocide, their grandparents. So my buddy Khachik's in here, that's got grandparents or had grandparents who were the children of genocide survivors, essentially. Lost their parents in the genocide, so they didn't see their grandparents. They saw their parents, and their grandparents were killed, or even their parents were killed. And so you got a societal kind of generation of people who don't have an older generation to raise them. Like lots of them were orphans and stuff like that. And there are markers to societies like this. They've done research on this. You can tell kind of like survivalistic and just like wisdom being passed down, like how to parent, what to do in difficult situations, like all of the stuff that you were mentioning. But imagine on a larger scale for a society. So there's a bunch of good stuff, and then there's a bunch of unhealthy stuff that like nobody corrects because you don't have a bunch of older people correcting it, right? So it's very interesting to make those observations, and you go, man, like these things are very, very, very important to us.
The one other thing I wanted to bring up real quick, on top of like the history and the values, and kind of connected to that, they note in the book that grandparents are a very strong source of religious education. Older generations tend to be more religious and tend to pass on those traditions, those ideologies to the generations, especially grandchildren. So I think it's very interesting, and probably you could do a study about churches that have the elderly people separated from the rest of the congregation. You know, they have their elderly, their senior programs, and they don't really interact much with the congregation. I think you see more healthy churches have more interaction between the youth and the young adults and the seniors of churches.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, there's quite a bit of literature on this that people have done research as to like the whole youth group culture and whether that's beneficial for young people and old people. It's nice for old people to be hanging out with, or older people, I should say, to be hanging out with young people, and vice versa. There's an interchangeable kind of aspect to that, which is phenomenal. My wife just texted me and said, "How do you know you're going to have cake later?" Well, I don't know when she texted. I just saw it. Well, my response is going to be, I didn't say I'm going to have cake. I said I probably will have cake. I'm very particular with the way I speak, man. That's philosophy. It's that philosophy stuff. It's like
words have meanings.
Yeah, words have meanings, and I like defining them, and I don't make assertions like that. I'm like, I don't know if I'm probably, more likely than that. And if there's no cake, then I'll just go buy one. I'll buy a slice and eat it, just so I can have cake.
Has your wife ever called you pedantic?
No.
Oh,
she's called me a lot of other names.
Where's your censor button? You got the beep.
Oh man, yeah, I don't have a censor button. Tell her to tell her to be clear with her language. Yeah, I have Socratic logic sitting here. It's like that's one of the fine points of being concise and not being vague in our speech. She is, guys. Man, we've been on 3 hours and 40 minutes. Hey, thanks for like jumping on. I just texted you. It was so funny because Nick called in and I was like, "What's that symbol on your shirt?" And he lifts it up and I go, "Bro." And I was like, "Did Tyson give you that or did you buy it?" And he goes, "Well, I'm not going to say. And I was like, "Well, that says enough." He goes, "Well, have you written anything for him?" I was like, Fair point. I have not. I have not. But hey, thanks, man. Thanks for putting this on together, this conference, man, because it's so needed. I think it's going to be very beneficial. I'm looking forward to it. Really excited about it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to just see you guys, all of my buddies who are going to be speaking or just volunteering, hanging out, meeting some of the people who have been commenting that they're going to be attending. Like, it's just going to be great to be in person again. It's always super, like, this is my favorite time of year because we get, I always have to go to ETS and EPS. Always have to do a reasonable faith banquet that Dr. Craig sets up. So this is always my favorite time because afterwards I'm just supercharged for the next year. Like we cast a vision for what we want to see happen over the next year. And, we're just so encouraged with the fellowship that we have with one another in person in that time. And so that's what carries me from year to year is like,
I know quite a bit of that for me as well. It's that is true. That is absolutely true. So cool, Tyson. I'm going to end the stream. Or else somebody asked me. Thank you. Somebody earlier asked me, Arthur, why don't you munch on something when you're streaming? I'll tell you exactly why. I know the answer to this, and it's not trauma, but it's something my mom ingrained in me, and I just can't So when I was young, growing up in Armenia, there wasn't a lot of stuff to eat. Okay. And if I were to go outside with food, like say I grabbed the apple and I ran outside, my mom would always stop me and say, "Do you have enough for other people that are outside that might look at it and see it and want it?" And if the answer to that question was no, she would say, "Well, then eat it at home and then go, or just don't eat it and then eat it later." And then even when we came to America, I would go on these school field trips. And then, my mom had to pack lunch and stuff like that. And she would pack, she'd make me a sandwich and she would make 7 of them. And I was in 7th grade, 8th grade. I literally remember going to this, I went somewhere with my science class. And she made sandwiches that were that big. And she made 8 of them. I didn't know, I open up this thing and I eat 1.5. I just have all this, and I just started giving it to classmates that were still hungry or forgot lunch or something. Just my mom thought about this, and she so that's been a part of kind of me
were you
up.
super popular? I feel like that made you super popular.
Yeah, I don't think I've had an issue with popularity growing up. Being an extrovert and stuff like that, it always makes, I make friends very easily. But so I get uncomfortable eating on camera. Just it's there. I'm just always oh, I don't like. So that's the reason to give you a very serious answer to the good question. But maybe sometimes I should. I think recently I did one where I was really hungry. I was no, I got to eat with something or else I'm gonna collapse. But yeah, those
should do a special patron only stream of you eating.
You get weird people that join because they like to hear the sound of your chewing. That stuff freaks me out. Okay, so no, there's weird people out there. come hear me chew. And they're like, yes. The next thing you know, my Patreon thing is like through the roof. I'm making the big bucks. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with apologetics.
They pull you in for church discipline. Arthur,
Yeah, hey, are you like randomly chewing loudly on your streams? Oh man, I can see that legitimately happening. That's the thing. I can totally see that. Like someone's out there, like, oh man, yeah, I like the sound of crunchy chips. The internet's brought out really, really awesome and good stuff in the world, and you guys know the rest. So, man, we don't have that much left to actually see each other. So, we will see each other.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it.
I'll shoot you some text and stuff like that as we prepare for that. So,
yeah, thanks for your help with promotion too. I really appreciate that.
Anytime. I'll see you. The ASMR apologist. Oh gosh.
Somebody's frantically Googling like Armenian eating on live stream.
See, this is where we ended up. 3 hours and 40 minutes later.
Yeah. How do we bring this back to Jesus?
Well, that's not difficult for me, man. Jesus ate with his disciples. He ate with his friends. He ate with his enemies. He ate with sinners and tax collectors.
And the marriage supper of the Lamb is coming, my friend.
Oh, yes. Preach that. Yeah. I've done too much street preaching not to be able to bring any conversation back to something that's related to the Bible. That's what street preaching gave me. It gave me a tool to like be in a random conversation and then be able to circle back around and be like, yes, we got a biblical example of this.
You ever hear of the term Jesus juke?
What?
Jesus juke?
Oh, like when you like juke someone? Is that?
Yeah. The Jesus juke is like in conversation when you bring it, like suddenly and awkwardly back to Jesus. Yeah.
I would wish I wasn't doing it awkwardly, just doing it. Yeah, like, yeah, how can we circle this back around? We're talking about eating, and it's like Jesus had a fish fry post-resurrection.
Ew.
That's cool. Resurrected body still eating food. Tells you, develop your theology well, folks. There will be food, is all I'm saying.
Hallelujah.
Yes. One of the guys at my Bible study yesterday said, we were talking about food and heaven and stuff like that. He said, man, do you think there'll be like fruit that tastes like meat? I was like, oh man, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? You can't eat animals anymore, but here's this fruit that tastes like a steak. Hey, it can happen. Nice way to end. Yes, it is. So again, Tyson, thanks, man. I'm gonna say bye to you. And we'll see you.
All
right. Folks, it has been a pleasure. Thanks to you guys. Some of you guys like long hung on in there. Thanks for all the happy birthdays. Appreciate that. I hope you enjoyed it, learned, laughed. That was kind of the point of this and doing it this way. So appreciate you guys. Thank you for your continuous support. And I hope you like the new mic, because I love it. It's great. And then once I get everything set up, I got to get another mic arm and get a couple of other things set up. I've told my wife. She's kind of like under the weather right now, but I've told her. She's coming to the studio next week. We're going to have a stream. We're going to be talking about marriage and kids and relationships and stuff like that. So look forward to that. Take care. God bless you guys. And I will see you, hopefully, God willing, Monday. Take care.